Hello, Internet. How are you today? I see that some people are already active on the chat, and uh, I don't know if the introduction I have planned for this stream will be useful because most of you, I think, already know what Yiz does and who she is. But in any case, just to make sure, for the people who don't know, I will give a small introduction. There is much to say about you, yes, but still, I think that one of the things that we have to mention is that you are quite active on YouTube and you have a very proactive YouTube channel,
Mm-hmm.
which is this one. If I'm not this, that's the window, this one. Uh, Thanks for your Google Chrome. You are slow today. So this is your YouTube channel, and as we will explain and talk about it, one of your main shtick on YouTube is something that you mention very, very, very often, which is you call anti-white, and
Mm-hmm.
you also are quite active on live stream, which I've been invited quite a few times, by the way. And
Uh-huh.
everything is quite diverse in a way that you talk about pop culture, you talk about politics, you talk about
Mm-hmm.
um, social topic or maybe some news. You invited me to talk about the France riot. You have also what I take. This is your ongoing series, so to say. This is a work video. This is one example, and you talk in your neighborhood and explain what's on your mind. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and finally, and we will talk about your life a bit later on, but something that I've seen that is quite important to your hearts is your camping trip. That one is near. Am I correct?
Yes, in about a month and a half,
Okay.
this year's camping trip will happen.
Yeah, and I think
This
this is a somewhat secret location in your department, Tennessee.
yes. Yes, it's in East Tennessee. I don't lie. I don't hide that. But
Yeah,
I don't say the exact camp or the exact place that we use each year, and I change it up a little bit each year
yeah,
to a different uh piece of this national park. And each year, I call it my Patriot camping trip because the people that come, they're not radicals. They're not people that go out to big
yeah.
protests and shout at the government. They're not people like that. They're just good, wholesome people who love being American and have not given in to, the usual white guilt narrative, and they aren't accepting the ugly lies of the modern day.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to meet with American patriots like that. We have a lot of fun. There's a gun range at the park,
Yeah. I
and
don't
we
know if
shoot a
you
lot of
see.
guns.
I'm showing one of the video of
Yeah, I can
2022.
see.
Okay, okay.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
this is very in French we have a word which is bucolique. It's something like it's very pretty in what nature can offer for us the mankind population.
Yeah, yeah, it's very pristine. There's no roads out here. There's no industry. It's just natural Appalachian wilderness with tiny little campground, and then several hundred acres of just of untouched wilderness, and it's really pretty out here.
Mm.
And so this is why I like to bring people out here, is because I feel a strong connection with nature,
Yeah.
and I think it's healthy to have meetings in places like this to just sort of celebrate the good old folk that are American patriots in this part of
Yeah.
the country.
You speak most of the time about your camping trip that it's good old American fun with shooting guns and stuff,
It is.
eating meat.
Yeah, I make a whole bunch of meat treats. I make bacon wrapped pork chops. I bring burgers that I make myself. We grill hot dogs sometimes. It's a lot of fun.
Okay.
I usually bring a big cooler of a couple $100 worth of pork chops, and steaks, hamburgers, and bacon and things like that.
So,
And
so yeah, this is basically what you do. This is basically you and your activity on the internet. It's very It's the TLDRs for the people. So you do more of it, but it's basically it in the great line, as we say in French.
Hmm.
Have you other things that you want to mention for the introduction of who you are and what you do?
Well, I mean, I could. Do you want me to just talk about what I do publicly, like with my channel and activism and
Yeah, but
stuff,
to
or do you?
to 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 add a little bit that I may have missed in the presentation of your work.
No, you basically got it. What I do is I like to talk, I like to network, and I like to I like comedy. I like making memes. I like hosting a show where I bring people on and talk about current events and politics, cultural stuff, and entertainment. I like to talk to people, and one of the things that I use my voice for is to try to help counter this really ugly anti-ethnic, anti-Western rhetoric that has permeated Western culture. How you've got this on one side of things, you've got the anti-male feminist stuff, then you've got the racial anti-white politics stuff, and then you've got this consumerist corporate sort of anti-spiritual side of things that just sort of eats at us and claws away at who we are. And so in all of the work that I do my best to give people words and ideas that will help them live a more fulfilling, more wholesome life in the face of all the ugliness that we have to deal with. All the anti-white stuff, the anti-male stuff, all of the just corporate consumer crap that we have to put up with at work and at school.
So
So,
basically, you are an angry redneck.
yeah, pretty much, yeah. I prefer the term hillbilly to redneck. I'm not a redneck. I'm a hillbilly. There's a difference.
What's the difference, to be honest? Because for me, basic European, I don't know the difference.
Well, the words are used a little differently depending on who's using them. Sometimes
Okay,
you can use those words. Some people use those words as insults, like especially
I know
more
for
liberal.
rednecks, that is it's basically an insult, but hillbilly, I never knew that it was an insult.
Well, some people use hillbilly and redneck as an insult, like especially your more you're like anti-white liberal city folk. They'll act like people who live out in the wilderness like me are backwards and stupid, and they'll call us dumb hillbillies and dumb. But really, those words, a redneck basically just means you're a working class guy who works for a living. You probably work outdoors doing farming or construction, or you work in the military or something like that. And it's because the back of your neck is sunburned because you're outside doing manual labor. That's where the term redneck. And
For
it's just a colloquialism that means you're a good old white working class blue collar guy. That's basically what redneck. And hillbilly is sort of the mountain folk version of that, like people who choose to live apart from mainstream culture, sort of living out in the woods, out in the swamp down in Louisiana, living up in the mountains in Arkansas, that kind of thing. People who try to stick to the old ways of just being a traditional old-timey American that lives in the woods and lives off his own land and stuff. That's what hillbilly means, and I'm more of a hillbilly than a redneck.
for hillbilly, I always had the picture of well, maybe I'm wrong, but correct me. Of the guy who is like some piece of straw or something in his mouth, playing the banjo or like the spoon and.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Anyway, you will enlighten me and educate me on the majesty of the countryside of the USA in
Okay.
this interview, I'm sure. So let's start with a broad brush. One of your main shtick that I'm quite interested because it's something that we see often, like it's the devil who speak about this, and this is like a word you speak at least 50 times a day. One of the main topic is anti-whiteism. That
Yeah.
I'm still not entirely sure what is it and what's the difference
Sure.
between this and white supremacy in the leftist opinion.
Oh, certainly. The
So can you explain this to us and for the
Yeah,
people who
sure.
are not up to stuff about the battle on the internet, what's the difference if there is one between anti-white and white supremacy? When
Oh,
anti-whiteism.
well, the anti-whiteism is basically a replacement term for the word racism because the concept of racist and racism is really just a beating stick that white people get beat with all the time. It doesn't really hurt anybody. And so in the ugly sort of anti-white animus that has reared its head in our culture the last several years, we need a better word to talk about what's being done to us as Western people. And now I know that ethnicity is different from race. I know that somebody in Belgium is not French, they're not Dutch, they're not English. I know that we all have our own languages and our own dialects and our own ethnicities. But that's not how corporations and the government attack us. That's not how they hurt us. They hurt us because of our race group. They hurt us because we're European, we're white. And we needed a better word for that. And I get the term from this book called the Go Free Method. Oops, that's the wrong copy.
Yeah, you speak a lot about it.
I copy pasted the wrong thing. That was my shill method.
Ah.
There we go. There's the Amazon link to the Go Free book. This Go Free book.
You have like a shirt, a sports shirt that a friend gave you with the Go Free.
Yeah, my friend Reptile. He raises reptiles. He's is it herpetologist? I think that's what you call a guy who specializes in working with reptiles. But yeah, we call him Reptile. That's his online name. He and his wife got this shirt made for me as a gift, or the jersey made for me as a gift. It's neat. I wear it sometimes on my morning walks. I go out to town. But the reason why we use the term anti-whiteism is one of the primary concepts of the Go Free method is to not buy into the narrative of ideas and language that hurts Western people. And part of that narrative is racism and feminism and all these isms that denigrate men and white people of the West, especially the white men of the West, by acting like them being strong and competent and masculine and caring about their folk and caring about their cultural ethnic history. You and I both know that we grow up in a world that punishes. And so you can't win inside that narrative by using their language. So we have a phrase in the Go Free method that says, if you legitimize hostile terminology, if you use hostile terminology, you legitimize hostile ideology. And so that's why I don't use the word racism. I say anti-whiteism instead of that word, because that's really the systemic problem in our country right now, is this legal and often financially incentivized punishment and denigration of the white race, especially white men. And so this is why this method uses up...
The white cis man today is like the...
Yes.
How to say, yeah, the Nazi of the past.
Yeah, and the reason why we have boogeyman words today like Nazi and fascist and white supremacist and all this stuff is it comes from the Allied war machine propaganda effort of denazification that started, between 80 and 90 years ago. And we have this ugly mind war of propaganda that has become commonplace all throughout white country. All of these negative anti-ethnic ideas that were used specifically to disempower and to crush the German people because of how World War II went. All of this propaganda stuff didn't stop. It just started targeting all white people that were of a more nationalist, traditionalist mindset all throughout the West. So when you look at the original, in our era, the old school Marxist propaganda stuff, this is where the concept of racism came from. It came from the Bolshevist camp in Russia. They needed a way to sow division and create internal ethnic conflict in successful Western countries where the approach of class and wealth distribution didn't function as well. So they created the concept of racism and injected it purposefully into our culture, into our language, to cause the problems that we have today. And so if you perpetuate those ideas and terms, like calling people you don't like a Nazi, calling anyone that you think is traditional mindset or thinks that race is real and sex and gender are real, this is why you have the shrieking blue hairs and the transgender lunatics and the leftists in politics. This is why they all use the same language. They all say fascist, they all say Nazi, they all say white supremacist, because that is a word that was falsely at first given power by the propaganda machine and was adopted by the West. This is why oftentimes you hear people say that communism didn't lose, it just changed uniforms. Because
Today,
you have the same kind of rhetoric is pushed now in the so-called free or liberal West. You have this same kind of hateful, spiteful language that is used to punish everyone in the West who wants to live a more wholesome, realistic, truthful, traditional lifestyle. We're beaten with the white supremacy stick, and we're called evil Nazis, even though we're definitely not.
yeah, and also I see from time to time a map of the world with all the different color of skin of people, and the white are not definitely not a majority.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the people you mentioned who always threw words at you, if you listen to them, it's all histophobe. You are something is something phobe, something blah blah blah. It's it's like changing clothes. Oh, this doesn't fit. I will change this one. Change the tie,
Yeah.
change the color, change.
Yeah, and I'm a person who I am not of a left-leaning or right-leaning persuasion of politics. I really don't like politics. I think it's mostly just a dog and pony show. I don't think that most of the time the people that we vote for, it doesn't often matter, except for local elections where there's not a lot of people voting and you can personally know and keep an eye on the people that you vote for, like your local sheriff or your local city functionaries. Those people are local and you can actually have an impact on your local community by voting. But when it comes to bigger elections like voting for parliament, voting for a PM, voting for a president or a state senator, these people are beholden to international conglomerates, international finance, the US-Israel war machine, and many different power brokers on the planet. You've got lobbyists that lobby for corporations, you have NGOs, you have organizations like the SPLC and the ADL, which are sort of like the political parties that we know, like the Tories in England, like the Republican or the Democratic Party in America. These institutions are basically clubs of power that have international financial sponsoring, and they take their marching orders not from the people they supposedly represent, but from powerful financial and global interests of certain minority groups or financial blocks. So this is why I don't really get invested in politics. I just tell people, vote for who you think will do the best job. But fixing the problems we have are not going to be solved with voting. So I'm not really invested in the current politics of the day. Like, I don't lose any sleep thinking like, oh no, the Democrats are going to win. Like, I don't really care about that much. I care about what people do with their lives, how they speak. I want people to be encouraged to build good families, good communities, create a business you can leave for your son, create a trade or develop a trade skill you can teach your children. Learn how to live and produce not like everything you need, because most people don't want to do a complete subsistence living. I don't want to do that. Most people don't want to live that way. But what I do want to encourage everyone listening today and everyone that listens to my channel to is to take a more active role in being a self-sufficient person to your family and your community. Work with people in your family, work with people where you live in your town or your community, or maybe you live in a rural area like me, where you can start to grow a few things. Maybe you really like tomatoes, or you really like blueberries, or you want to have a little tiny grow farm where inside you grow some herbs. Well, that's a good start. Or maybe you really like animals. Maybe you can raise a couple of pigs, or maybe you can have a little tiny chicken coop and you have just a handful of chickens and you can get fresh eggs, not just for your family, but that you can trade with other people. The more that we can sort of wean ourselves off of this big state, big corporation machine, the healthier that we are going to be, because we're going to have a more holistic, communal connection to the people around us that matter. And so I encourage people not to be invested in big movements, like national movements like MAGA or Brexit, or big movements that try to affect the whole country. Those things, those are okay, I guess, but like, you're not really going to create personal fulfillment and create personal things that you can carry through your whole life and leave to the younger people in your community. This is what we all need to be focused on most, because that's what we can control. Me and you and everybody listening to this, we're not rich. We're not powerful. We can't control governments. We can't decide the curriculum that a school teaches. We can't do that. But what we can do is we can focus our efforts on raising smart children that will hopefully resist the propaganda mind war. We can create communities based on love and trade and religion and commonality or any kind of cultural ethnic identity that we share together. Like maybe in Belgium, maybe there are some people where you live that they don't like the EU, they don't like how the UN does things, they don't like NATO, they want to be more traditional, they want to live a life based on older European tradition. Well, they should make a community together, and many of them do. I talk to people all throughout the West, not just in the Anglosphere, but all throughout the West, that are building healthy traditional communities. They have their own schools, they trade their own crops and livestock and eggs and things together. This is how I think we should sort of take a step back from the constant bombardment of corporatism and material luxury, like smartphones and internet and fast cars and all of the things that modernity wants us to be concerned with. Yeah, those things are cool. Yeah, you can enjoy things like video games and nice cars and stuff. But you should make a big part of your life about doing good things, making a fulfilling life that you can share with others in your real space, not on the internet, not on Facebook, not on Twitter, but with people in your community. Real families are going to lead to a better future, and the only real way that we can carry on our way of life and the things that made the West great in the first place is by having communities that keep those ideas and those passions alive and carry the flame of our ethnos forward. And so this is a good time for me to talk about some of the writing that, because I recently wrote a Substack article over on my Substack called Why the Big Lie, talking specifically about what I just talked about for the last few minutes. This article is called Why the Big Lie PsyOps 101, and it's about why the powers that be are interested in not just ethnic erasure, but keeping us bombarded with all of this global news all the time. Why they are always going on about, oh, there's Nazis and racists and oh, scary war machine, and oh, there's bombs and global warming and a hurricane's coming, is they want us all to just be constantly shell-shocked with bad news and fear propaganda. So we are not willing to build and to do anything valuable with our time and effort. They want us to just be intimidated and shell-shocked mentally. So we just keep going to work and dying on schedule and being a good little consumer drone that keeps the rich and powerful, evil people rich and powerful. That's what they want from us. And one of the ways that they do that is ethnic erasure. Is because strong ethnic communities with a strong racial, ethnic, religious, and cultural bond together, they have a strong ethnic identity and they resist all of this stuff. Like, look at the Amish, look at the Mennonites, look at the people who are separatists, look at the people who live in rural places like where I live, or in Idaho, or Louisiana, or Arkansas. Their mind poison, their propaganda, it's very difficult by comparison to universities and big cities or cosmopolitan areas where there's, every race on the planet is all in one place, and you've got Muslims and Jews and Christians and atheists and pagans and Hindus all living in one spot. Those people don't have a strong cultural fabric together, because diversity being a strength is an outright lie. Diversity is being fractured. Diversity is being watered down. Diversity is weakness. It's not a strength. And so that's why this age of the mind war, this age of psyops that we're in, it specifically doesn't want us to have these strong cultural ethnic bonds and building community around that, because it resists their primary tool of keeping us scared little sheep that just go to work and die on schedule.
It's
And
only because
that's why
what you
that's why I'm against all that stuff, and I encourage people to create strong, healthy communities on cultural, ethnic, and religious bonds. Is because that's how we can defeat this kind of evil mind cancer.
it's funny because what you speak of um cultural bond, ethnic mind likeness, if I'm
Hmm.
correct with what I say, is something that is very present and very strong in the almost the gene and the identity of some group, for example, the Muslim or some
Hmm.
African tribe, or even Japan with a strong tradition
Hmm.
presence in the mind and the hearts of people. So there is
And a
still
good
that.
example, yeah, a good example in America are the Amish and the Hasidic Jews of New York. They
Yeah,
have a
the Jew. Yeah,
very
I forgot it.
special, yeah, they have a very special ethnic identity that they cherish, and they carry that forward. And they give their craft, they give their trade, they give their ways of religion and culture to their children, and guard them jealously, and keep outside influence away from their children. And so that's what I want for all the white people. I want all of you and all of the beautiful white countries that we have, whether you're listening in Finland or Norway or France or Belgium or Canada or wherever you're listening. You need to care about your cultural history, your ethnic identity, and build community around that, because that's not something that this soulless, evil, anti-white corporate world can easily take from. So build that and invest yourself in that, and that is a good inoculation against the poison of today.
So in a way, because it was a bit long, but I'll let you speak. No problem with that. It's just that I'm wrapping my mind around all of that. Um,
Sure.
so for you, all of this cause that you have to defeat this creeping idea and poison of anti-whiteism, it's more
Hmm.
like a cultural and maybe spiritual thing than politics, because you
Hmm.
repeat multiple times that you don't like doing politics. So it's like, yeah, it's more like cultural and spiritual.
It is, and if you look at the origin of what politics is, or I should say was, traditionally politics meant your cultural ethnic identity doing what it has to do to take power and protect your people from outside influence, and to make sure your children have a healthy future. That's what politicking originally was. And that's what we have lost today. Because in the age of democracy and voting and the EU and the UN and the United States global empire that, wants to put a pride flag in a Starbucks in everyone's town across the world, this is
And
is
in every
not what
school.
politics. Yeah, and in every school, yeah. This is not what politics is supposed to be. Politics is supposed to be people of a group that is an identifiable group saying, "Hey, we are this group, and our desires need to be made manifest where we live. Hey, you, Mr. Landowner. Hey, you, powerful financial investor. Hey, you, church leader. We want you to do what is good for us, and we want you to represent the people that make this identity real." And so, if you live in where I live here in America, in the Appalachian Mountains, we are WASP, 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 White Anglo-Saxon Protestant, right? So the people here should be represented by those who are WASPs, or who promote and want to safeguard the lifestyle and the ways of life of the WASPs, of the people who made this area and this part of the country great to begin with. We need to have representation. That's what politics used to be about. But that's not what politics is now. Politics has become this ugly, forgive my French, shit show of,
French.
yeah, forgive my French. No, but it's become this ugly shit show of who are we going to vote for that's going to steal from us and hurt us the least. It has nothing to do with feeling represented. It has nothing to do with voting for the person that you think knows who you are and cares about your people and your way of life. We have no one like that left to vote for. They're almost every single one of them is either an internationalist, a foreigner, someone who is connected to the ugly United States war machine, or someone who represents another powerful global interest like China or Russia or Saudi Arabia or Iran or something
Yeah,
like that.
Russia one, two, three. Russia and China is also two countries who have a um, strong feelings about their cultural identity and stuff.
Oh,
Which
they
again,
do, but
again is different with the white people today.
but like in America, keep in mind that a large part of the Russian and Chinese identity is just as fake as the American identity. Because remember, China also had a horrific problem with communism, Mao's Red China, and the entire ethnos of China was dramatically changed. It was the traditions of China were destroyed and basically only exist now in Taiwan. And then in Russia, You had several years of communism that destroyed the entire ancient ethnic identity and the evolution of the Russian identity when the Tsars were exterminated, when the Bolshevik Jews killed like 10 or 12 million white Christians and completely changed the course of the Russian state and the Russian people. So you had something similar happen in the United States. We
Yeah,
had
but
an entire
with
generation completely stripped of traditional identity between the War of Southern Independence and World War I. You had an entire generation of people killed off, and then all of their children lied to about what their history was, and it forever changed the American identity. And this happened in China, this happened in Russia, and so these identities are very strong, but they represent, in my opinion, a very anti-ethnic energy. Because when you look at the expansionistic, greedy mind of someone like Putin, or you look at the expansionistic soft power and pro-China movement happening in China with its soft power around the world, these aren't necessarily for the good of the Chinese people or the Russian
no,
people.
sure.
They're for the good of the oligarchs and the powerful corporations that are backed by them. That's who it's actually for the good for. But no, you're correct. China and Russia do have a very strong ethnic identity, even though it is one, in my opinion, that is heavily war machine propaganda, just like the American.
Oh yeah, sure, but you don't have much immigration in Russia and China. Like you don't
That's
have
true.
a visa, and you don't have the diversity and blah blah blah. And
Right. Yeah.
it's like I remember something that in video game, for example, everything must be vetted by the Communist Party to for
Hmm.
something coming in China. And all movies and stuff like that. I'm sure you are aware of that. But the thing is
Hmm.
that they guard their borders very viciously, and the opposition of the the West population.
Yeah. And this brings me to another good point here is we are the only people in the world right now whose leaders are actively working against. And I'm not just talking about the tired old white genocide. Like I don't like to talk about it. That's just silly. That doesn't make anybody listen to what you have to say. But when you look at who can you legally discriminate against, white men.
Yeah, yeah.
Who are you financially incentivized to not hire and to replace in your business? White people. And this is happening in white countries. So we are the only civilization on earth right now where you have the leadership actively punishing the host population and trying to disempower and get rid of the people that the country's supposed to be for.
I
And
have
that's
a
happening in basically every white country right now. And it's
yes.
very sad. It's very, very
I
sad.
have a funny anecdote about this. Um, I'm watching the football news. So for you, for the US, it's soccer, but here I would say
Yeah.
football.
Football, yes.
And so there was one of the greatest player of the world, which is Cristiano Ronaldo from Portugal,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
he recently was transferred to a club in Saudi Arabia, and
Hmm.
he's doing well. Okay, well, oil money. Okay, what's new? But anyway, he scored some goal in a match, and he celebrated by doing the Christian cross on his chest. He
Hmm.
was on the verge of being arrested and thrown in jail.
Really?
Yes, and no one is talking about that.
That is wild.
Yes,
What, like, I don't even understand why they would, like, I don't understand, like, why did he almost go to jail for that?
because Christianity in a Muslim country.
Oh,
So yeah, it all prove everything you said.
yeah. There's a very ugly animus against people of the West. And even though I was raised Christian, I don't necessarily think that all white people need to be Christians. I don't think like that. But a big part of why Christianity is
I
being
will give you
persecuted.
the link of this story in the chat for the people who are
Okay,
curious, because
sure,
I see that
sure,
they have one or two reaction.
sure. But I do think that one of the reasons why you have a denigration and a punishing of Christianity when the other two types of Abrahamic religion, Islam and Judaism, are not punished, is because Christianity is heavily associated with Europeans, with white people. And that sort of goes hand in hand with a lot of traditional-minded white people who want to resist what's being done to us. And so one of the methods of attack to hurt white people is to disempower our main religion, which is the different kinds of Christianity. But again, I don't want you to think I'm saying every white person is Christian. I'm not saying.
No,
Just saying
of
that.
course not. There is also
that
white Jew and stuff and everything, but
oh yeah.
it's definitely something. Well, the most victim demographic is white people.
Yeah, and it's very sad because all of the anti-white rhetoric talks about how racism means it's a pyramid of oppression and white people sit at the top of this pyramid of using and abusing non-white people, and we're always told that diversity is to represent minority. Well, white people are a minority on planet Earth. Like, white people are only around 5% of the Earth's population, like 1 out of 20 people. And
Yeah.
why are we told then that diversity is a strength when diversity means removing what few white people there are from the only places that white people live? To me, that's not anything other than just punishing and destroying Western civilization by destroying its people. And I think that's a very ugly lie that we have to get ahead of. And I understand that a lot of unsavory people bring up these points. Like, you've got your neo-Nazis, and you've got certain people that are of a fascist mindset. They talk about this stuff too. But I'm not like them. I don't advocate for that kind of stuff. But I do think that the anti-white animus that has reared its head in our culture is going to be the death of us and the destruction of our civilization if we don't fix it. Because if you have generation after generation of white person that is raised to believe that their race is uniquely responsible for all of the problems on Earth, then on top of all of the other reasons to not be invested in your own people and your ethnic identity, you're going to have that on top of all the other things to make you not want to have a family, to make you want to be transgender, to make you want to have children with someone that's not of your race or your ethnicity. There are all of these factors at play that are destroying any chance of us having a healthy future as a white country. And I don't think that's good because I like the West. I think we've done wonderful things, not just for white people, but for the whole world.
Yes.
And I think that if you destroy white people, you destroy Western civilization. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think that not just white people, but all people will benefit from a healthy, burgeoning Western civilization. And I don't like the American empire. I'm not saying that we have to be friends to America. My government is one of the most evil, hostile, anti-white forces on Earth right now. They're very bad and need to be fixed as well.
It's always funny because most of the people who defend diversity and blah blah blah, they say, as you claim, as you claim, they claim that they want to respect culture, to include everyone, etc. But white, no. Here I found 2 articles about this, including one where it specified that even his lifestyle, so to say, because he's not married to the woman he lives with, and even that is not not very appreciated and tolerated in Saudi Arabia. So yes, and they say they made an exception for him.
Oh.
It's the government directly, so the government cops the football player, and he, as I said, yeah, he had risked arrest for his celebration. Because
That's very sad.
when you score a goal, some people have a unique way of celebrating, and for him, he was doing the cross sign and screaming something and blah blah blah, and yeah.
Well,
The
you said he's Portuguese, right?
Yes.
And I assume from what I know of Portugal, it's a very Catholic place.
Well, he specified in the past, I go every week to church. I am Catholic and I go thank to God for what He gives me.
Yeah,
So
and see, so why would you want to punish that but not punish the other thing? Like, now I know that
I don't
he's
know.
in an Islamic state, so that's not the same as living in the West.
Yeah, but
I mean,
for
one could
example,
argue differently if you've been to London recently.
for example, I don't know if you ever watch a football game or a soccer game again, but most people when they enter the field, they like touch the grass and do a gesture. For Muslim people, they bow or raise their head and mum themselves some prayer. So there is all kind of religious and cultural symbolism.
Hmm.
But yeah, like here in this article, it specify like you cannot not understand this. Gesture associated with the Christian faith are banned in Saudi Arabia. Public display of such gesture is considered a crime.
Now, see, this is a good example of what I'm talking about, where we're headed,
Yeah.
because right now in the United States and in England and in Canada, you can lose your job, you can have your children taken from you, you can lose your position at work, you can and sometimes even be arrested and charged with crimes for speaking the truth about racial differences and making the claims of, I think that England is a white country, and I don't think that non-white foreigners, even white foreigners, have a right to show up in massive numbers.
Mm.
Some places you can even be arrested for saying that.
Yeah, yeah.
And so,
You spoke about a little girl with autism, I think, that say,
yes.
oh,
Hmm. Well, she wasn't a little girl. No, she was 15. So not a
okay,
little girl, but
okay.
a young woman,
Yeah, but
15.
I think you know what I meant. So this is
Yes.
the girl who said, "Oh, this woman looks like my nanny who is lesbian, blah blah blah, something like that." And she was
Yes.
arrested or like threatened to be arrested.
No, she was arrested. They took her away. They
Damn!
took her. Yeah. And this is why I say that
Ultimate
anti-whiteism.
Karen.
Yeah, this is why I say anti-whiteism is a sickness for white people, because the people who showed up to arrest that girl and take her from her family, they were all white people. It was a white woman, the woman who looked like the lesbian Nana, and she had 2 or 3 white men with her. They showed up and they terrorized this white family. They were all English to my knowledge. So why would these English people terrorize another English family?
Yeah.
Anti-whiteism, that's why. Because they have been hollowed out, they have been intimidated, they have been persecuted, and they have been brainwashed by the anti-white establishment to think that anyone who says a no-no word, whether it be lesbian or whatever word it is, it doesn't even have to be a bad word, and it doesn't even have to
Yeah.
be said
From the
with
record
hatred,
I
because
heard,
clearly the autistic girl didn't say it with hatred, because she said, hey, that police officer reminds me of my Nana, who I love, who is also a lesbian. Like,
yeah,
that's
it
not a
was
hate
not
word. That's not bigotry. That's just an
yeah.
autistic person speaking their thoughts as they happen.
Yeah, like
So,
she see a dog in the street. Oh, look, a dog, just like
yeah.
yeah.
And so why would this supposedly lesbian police officer, I don't know if she's really lesbian or not, I don't know. But
She
why
looks
would
like
this
one.
woman, she looks like one, true. So but why would this woman want to persecute and take away a woman's daughter for that? And
Hate.
I think the reason is she has an ugly heart, she has an ugly mind, and she wants to spitefully, hatefully lash out and hurt someone else. Maybe she really is homosexual. Maybe she can't have children of her own because she's homosexual. And all of these anti-white lies that she's grown up with, the anti-white lies of feminism, the anti-white lies of liberalism, the anti-white lies of all of the other isms, right? Marxism and communism, all these other isms,
Yeah.
they have lied to her. They have made her into the monster that she is. And this is why I say we have to get ahead of this. We have to heal this spiritual plague, this mental disease in us. We have to overcome that, or we don't have a future. And we have to overcome that to stop mass migration. We have to overcome that to stop the anti-white lies in school and in media. We have to start making communities that resist that kind of mental poison, or we're not going to have a future at all worth living. Other people will come into our countries and take over, which is what we've seen happen in the last 50 years. You have the United States Israeli Empire taking over Western countries, and what do they push? They push anti-whiteism. They push white erasure. They push the denigration of men. They push the punishing of Christianity. They push all of this ugly stuff by instituting laws and financial incentives to punish white people, men, and Christians. It's very disgusting. We have to resist that. And that's the main focus of why I do the things I do and why I use the language that I do.
Yeah.
Now you sort of understand why I take this approach.
Well, speaking of that, this is a nice segue because, as you explained, like for almost an hour in one
Yeah.
question.
Well, I have a lot to say. I'm the
I
most passionate
know,
about this.
I
Right.
know, I know, and I hope that you have noticed that I shut up most of the time to let you speak, and I'm a bit less talkative than in your podcast. So you are a very engaged person, like you are very passionate and all, but you are not an activist, at least per se, at bare minimum. And you
Mm-hmm.
even cover some political news. For example, this little girl. You have a strong opinion uh, on many things, but you told to me and even here just before that you don't engage in politics. But what do you consider yourself then? Because I'm sure that in the past people told you that, well, you are actually an activist, blah blah blah. So how do you
I don't consider
think
myself
with
an
that?
activist.
Yeah.
I just consider myself an advocate. Uh, do you know this word,
Yeah,
advocate?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I am an advocate for the well-being of Western people and Western culture. I don't consider myself left-wing or right-wing. I don't consider myself part of any large ideology like fascism or National Socialism or liberalism or any of the isms. I don't identify as that. I don't care about that stuff. I don't think that a regular person like me, with a regular life and no money and no influence, I think it's a waste of my time to identify as some kind of big ideology. Because I don't have the power or the ability to change government, to change the economic structure of an entire country. I can't do that. I have no influence over it. So I don't waste my time caring about that. I look at the world and see what's going on, and I say, this is bad for us. There are bad things happening to us. We need to stop that. And I have some advice and some mimetic ideas and some mimetic language that I think can help with that. And I want to make a difference for the well-being of all the white people and all of the non-white people that are going to benefit from Western civilization being healthy again. Because I don't hate anybody. I don't hate Muslims or Jews or Chinese or Russians. I don't hate these people. I don't hate Africans. I want everyone to be healthy and to do what's right and to live a good life.
You
And that
just
includes
love
white people.
humanity, if I may.
Well, no. I mean, I love my own people first. Everyone should. I prioritize family first, then my community, then my ethnicity, then my race, then all of humanity. Everyone should be that way.
Yeah,
You
but
should put
you
your own
don't
people first.
you don't say like, oh, I don't like this kind of people. On the very principle and very basic, you are open to everyone as long as they
Yes,
are
and
nice people. Yeah.
I genuinely like all the things that humanity makes. I find things like ancient Zoroastrianism interesting. Old Magian civilization, like the ancient Hebrews, the ancient Arabs. I find that stuff interesting. I've read a lot about Hinduism. I find India and their cultural history very interesting. The same about the pre-communist China, the dynastic China, very interesting to study. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think my own people, that Western civilization isn't interesting. I love ancient Greece and ancient Rome and the ancient pagans of North Europe. Like, I love reading about that stuff too. I love hilariously, I love the diversity of human beings.
Mm.
All of the different artwork, all the different
Yeah,
religions, all the different
that's what
poetry and
I
songs.
meant.
That stuff is really interesting. But here's the thing. You have to have a healthy ethnic cultural identity for those things to survive and to be a real thing. And I don't want all of the beauty of all of the different white countries and all of the deep, beautiful history of Europe. I don't want all of that to be destroyed because of some stupid, modern, anti-white corporate bullshit. And that's what's happening to us. We're being destroyed, and all the things that have made my life great because of Western civilization are under attack. And I want that to stop. So I'm an advocate for the well-being of the West and an advocate for white people to be in control of their own future, to be in control of their own destiny. And I want that to happen. And so that's the only thing I identify as. I don't identify as any political camp or any type of movement. other than the white well-being movement or the Western well-being movement. That's the only thing that I care about and the only thing I identify in.
So you're definitely not a political person in the short version.
I suppose so. One could say I'm doing real politics. Like, have you heard the term realpolitik? Have you heard that phrase before?
Just like you, I'm not. It's not that I think I'm too stupid to do politics. It's just that I can't be bothered. Like, yeah, it's a hassle. It's tiring, and I leave that for the people who are hardcore into 24/7 politics.
Yeah.
Like I did a
Well,
bit in my past, a tiny bit, but it was enough.
well, I consider what I do to be some version of politics because, like I said, politics just means advocating for your group to be in control and to be represented in the business and in the affairs of the state or the crown. That's what politicking is. And I
Do
consider
you?
myself to be doing real politics, but I don't really get involved or invested in what modern cultural politics is. I don't really care what happens with that, as long as what happens is good for our people and good for our future. I don't really care about the name of the party or what letter comes after their name or whether you call it left or right. I don't give a crap.
Yeah,
I
especially
care about
since
people.
today left and right they lost quite a bit of meaning also. So
Yeah, and it all comes from the French Revolution anyway, which is basically
always the French. Blame the French always. By the way, Mr. Bier in the chat is the guy I talked to a tiny bit about, who is a Frenchman that lives in Texas.
Oh, bonjour,
yeah.
bonjour, Mr. Bier. I'm glad you're enjoying Texas.
It means Mr. B in French. Mr.
Oh, hello,
Beer.
Mr. B.
Mr. Beer. But it reminded me a bit of like I think it was Sargon. Yes, it was Sargon who did a video about Starship Troopers and the work of Heinlein, with
Yes.
The famous phrase, "Power is the source of all authority, and politics is a way to apply said power."
Yes, because
Do you agree to that?
Yes, the most powerful force is lethal force, and who controls lethal force controls destiny. And this is why it is very important to not let yourself be disarmed, and very important to have a strong community. Well, that's of course, but this is why I tell people it's not just having a gun. Having a gun doesn't help. Having a strong community of hundreds or thousands of people that have an identity that they're willing to fight and die for, that is real politics. That is real power. And so that's why I tell people, if you care about the future and you care about Western identity, whatever your identity is, whether it's German or English or whatever, if you care about that identity and you care about having a future for your children, it's not just about having a gun. It's about having a community. It's about having people that are willing to lay down their life for things. Because in the words of a great dead man, if a man doesn't have something he's willing to die for, then he doesn't have something he's willing to live for. And that is something that we have lost. Most people in modern culture don't have that. You have to build that again. Like the people in South Africa, the people that started Orania, the people that are running and are involved in AfriForum. They are taking their fate into their own hands. They're organizing real communities with real business and real trade, and they have weapons to protect themselves and their businesses and their property. That is real politic. Real politic is creating a real powerful ethnic bloc that is willing to use lethal force and lay down their own lives for what they think is important. That is what I advocate for. That is real politics. And so that's what I'm all about.
It's if I may resume, not resume, condense all you said. You are not an activist and you don't do politics, but it's like parallel to politics in a way.
Yes, you could call it mask off or real politics, because voting for someone within the current system.
I'm sorry for my question and tiptoeing my way.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm just trying to explain the best I can.
Hope, and I think I'm not the only dumb one in the room.
You're not dumb. No, it's just I think that if you care about making things better, you can't just vote and call it a day. You can't just say, well, I want things to be better, and then all you do is just vote a couple times a year. you're not really making any difference. You're not really doing anything real. If you actually care, you need to be active in investing in a community, in a family, building real networks of friends. You know the word fraternity?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Fraternity? We need to build real fraternity, real brotherhood, real family, real kinship among our people.
And this is
And
why
then,
you are
yeah,
in real life event like the camping trip, what you
yeah, that's
speak
part
of
of it.
so much on your working video, like build stuff and real life stuff, touch grass.
Yeah,
it's
exactly. And I
something,
think,
yeah, it's related to
yeah,
all of that.
yeah, it's related to that because that's what I think really matters. And most importantly, it's something that regular people can do. A regular person can't change the World Economic Forum. A regular person can't change NATO or the EU. A regular person can't stop mass migration. But a regular person can lay the groundwork for a strong ethnic identity that is capable of resisting those things, that is capable of taking their fate in their own hands. And you and me and everyone listening right now, and everyone that listens to this on replay in the future, you can participate in that. You can make friends. You can start a garden. You can raise chickens. You can create a business or a trade skill that you can leave to your son. You
You
can raise children
you can write books.
disconnected. Yeah, you can write books. You can be an entertainer like myself that speaks positive, healthy ideas to others. You can be someone who works in academia and actively resists all of the
Well,
anti-whiteism.
I think
You can,
unfortunately academia is maybe a lost cause, maybe.
yeah, yeah, it does seem that way. But what I'm saying is, it maybe someone who works in academia right now, maybe someone has just started realizing how bad things are, but maybe they're a professor, maybe they're a grad student. Well, you can try to do everything you can within that system to make it better. You can teach children, hey, see these things about feminism? This just wants to disempower the men of the West, and it wants to poison the minds of the women of the West against the men of the West because this idea is very hostile to Western people. Like, you can speak the truth in a healthy way, in a safe way, as safe as can be in academia. So I'm not trying to like say we all need to save academia. That was just
Mm.
an example that came to my mind. But everyone listening to this is going to be a normal person with normal capability. You're not going to be rich and have billions of dollars. You're not going to be someone who listens to this that has the ability to change national politics. But what you can do is do the things that I laid out earlier and take an active role in shaping your fate. You can take an active role in shaping the destiny of your own people, of your ethnic group, whatever that is, whether it be French or Canadian or whatever.
Um, I'm doing a tiny bit of a segue about politics. And
Sure.
I'm sorry that well, not politics but academia, but also politics, since we're talking about the relationship between politics and some fields that are totally contaminated.
Uh-huh.
So have you heard about a man in France named Samuel Paty?
I don't think so.
So, I'm sorry, it's a French article. I tried to search for an English one, but didn't find it. So,
It's okay.
he was a teacher, and he was assassinated in broad daylight in the street. I think he was even decapitated. By
Oh, yeah, I covered this on my
Yeah,
channel a few weeks or a month ago. Yeah, I remember now.
and it's often something that when some people try to speak about it, in France and the Francosphere at least, they always say, yeah, it's a far right trying to recuperate or take the discourse for themselves, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
So it's okay. It's just a madman, number 627.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's maybe a grim news, but it's it's hard trying to be this kind of person you are describing in
Hmm.
the academia sphere when this is
Hmm.
something you risk in some country.
That's true. That's why on my channel I often recommend that if you are involved in academia or you live in a big city, it might be wise, if you can, to leave academia and leave big cities for a more rural area and a smaller town. Now, in Europe, there's a lot of small towns, so that's easier to do than in America, where it's basically just big cities and then rural nothing in between. But it's, in my opinion, it is, you should spend your time and money wisely. And it might, like you said earlier, academia might be a lost cause, and if you can get killed or you can lose your livelihood or have your family destroyed by speaking the truth in academia, maybe you should leave. Maybe you should go join a private school or a community school, or maybe you can start your own school once you find a good community to be a part of. I know people that used to work in academia that stopped, and now they are doing private or home education and working with people of a more traditional mindset like me.
Mm.
And you can take the ideas and the knowledge and the career that you have and reshape that towards working on something holistic and healthy and with an ethnic focus on helping the people that you are. Let's say that maybe you are English, right? And you grew up in London and you're 40 years old and you've watched London become an unlivable anti-white hellhole. And you say, okay, I need to leave London. I need to go find English people in England that care about keeping the English identity and the English way of life alive. So I'm going to take my knowledge and my skills and my money, and I'm going to move to this small town in England, and I'm going to invest in them there. Because that is a better use of my time and money than staying on a sinking ship like London. So
Yeah.
maybe that's for the best. Maybe that's the wise course of action. And I think that, as sad as it is to say, perhaps many of our major cities are going to be casualties of war, and they will be lost, and we will have to remake them. But better that than losing everything, right? So
Yeah.
that's
But
why I say perhaps maybe we should just abandon a sinking ship.
honestly, I think that the US is safer than Europe right now. Because there
In
are
some ways, yes.
so many. For example, there is another case that I show here on stream, which is a little girl of 12 years old named Lola, which was
Yeah.
butchered like in pieces, in a suitcase, by a woman, by the way,
Yep.
a Muslim woman. And there was
Yeah, I read about that.
recently a man who tried to stab like babies in their crib, yeah, on in a park, or an old man and stuff like that, and he was stopped by some kind of heroes who,
Mm-hmm.
who, by the way, funny story, he was doing a tour of the big cathedral in France, and
Mm-hmm.
he was there by chance and tried to stop the guy and succeed. And yeah, there is so many little story about that in Europe, and especially France, England, Germany, a tiny bit in Netherlands and Belgium, a bit less. So yeah, it's it, you are safer in the US, at least in my humble opinion.
Well, one of the reasons is we are not disarmed. We have the
Yeah.
ability to use lethal force to protect ourselves, our property, and our family. And now that's under attack because now you have many, many corrupt judges and corrupt law enforcement who will punish us for doing that. So so it's not as good in America as you might think, but we do have a lot of good land and a lot of good people and a lot of good local rural law enforcement and rural judges that will protect our rights to defend ourselves with lethal. We
Mm.
do still have that in a lot of areas,
But
like where I live, for example.
another thing, it was Monsieur Bière who spoke about that, is that the media in France, specifically France, England too, but France, it's like, oh, it's desperate. Uh, for this kind of event, they are not accused but shift the blame, for example, for the teacher, that it was because he spoke about Islam or religion in the classroom and stuff like that. So in a way, maybe he searched for it. In a way,
Yeah,
it's
and I think that's part of what we call in the Go Free method. We call that the anti-white narrative,
yeah.
because in the narrative of news and politics and the narrative of lies that we live in, one of the ways that they keep us scared and weak is exactly like this. They will blame the victim. They'll say, "Oh, well, if he just hadn't talked about Islam, then he wouldn't have been murdered and beheaded by an Islamic terrorist." And they act like it's his fault. And that is part of the anti-white narrative, is they teach us that we will be punished for speaking the truth and standing up for our, and it's part of the mind war against us.
Yeah, it's a bit sad. I'm a bit lost for word for such a heavy topic, because I'm angry. I'm angry.
Yeah,
it's so unjust and so cruel and so
it is.
yeah.
Very, very dark, very sad.
But in a way, in a way, I'm glad that you heard about it and that you cover it a bit because here in France, Belgium, and the old Europe, it's like oh another one of those and swept under the rug.
Yeah. And that's what we call a hush crime. There's a lot of hush because a hush crime is a crime that needs to be brushed under the rug because it
Mm.
does not help the anti-white narrative. A good example is in the United States. You will hear both from United States media and media outside the United States that the United States has a mass shooting or a gun crime
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
And you will hear people in the United States in politics, they will say, oh, the biggest threat to American peace is white supremacy and white supremacy murders. And that's just a lie. Because when you look at gun crime and you look at all of the mass shootings, it's almost 100% of the time related to violent crime around drugs and drug gangs that are done by Central and Southern American people that are of the mestizo race group, which are called in America, they often call them Latino or Hispanic, and it's of people of African heritage. People that are either black Americans that were born and raised here, or Africans of different types
Oh,
that are from
you speak
Central
about
America. And
you speak about like the Bloods and the Crips, like the big gang.
not just that, but smaller things too.
Yeah. Okay.
Most of the gun crime murders in America that are more than just one person that you could call a mass shooting are categorized differently and categorized under drug crime and gang crime. So the media doesn't look at those. They only look at the shootings that white people do and say, "Oh, look at all of these murders that these evil white people did," even though it's like maybe 50 people. And meanwhile, you have dozens of thousands of whites and non-whites being murdered for drug and gang violence at the hands of non-white people.
Yeah, yeah.
And that alone is a huge deal. And so that is called hush crime
Okay.
because the media keeps a hush on all of the crime. For example, like if you have like a white lady in St. Louis, she got into an argument and some non-white person called her an ugly name and called her some, I think she said, you stupid white C word, and called her anti-white names, and then when she turned around, either shot her or stabbed her in the back. Well, the media
Uh,
doesn't cover that. The media won't cover that. But it will cover anything else that supports the anti-white narrative. That's why we call violent crimes against white people hush crimes, because the media keeps a hush on it and doesn't want to talk about it.
that's yeah. Right. Just for nothing, like free crime, free murder.
But yeah, it's very
Damn.
sad, very
Yeah.
dark.
It's like
And it's
the knife thing in England. I also heard
mhm.
that this one is it's like well in France when something is not deserved or not called for, there is almost no context, no nothing. We say it's free, like c'est gratuit, and yeah, it's like it's oh I want to kill you now. Why? Don't know. Okay.
Yeah. And it's very ugly of what we have to face because it's it's difficult to get people around you to even know how bad the situation is because of how ever present and dominant the anti-white narrative is with the media. Because if you even if you live in a place like where I live, where it's almost 100% ethnically homogenous WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, almost 100% of people here where I live are of the same ethnic, cultural heritage as the people who founded America and settled this area a couple hundred years ago. So, but they get their news and the input that they have about the country and the world from Fox News, from CNN, from mainstream cable internet, and from the news that they see on social media, specifically Facebook, because boomers use Facebook. So it's very difficult to even have a conversation with people here locally because all they know is the anti-white narrative. They don't understand
It's
the
like
things
it's
that
written
I
in their
know.
mind or something. They are
Yeah, and
so
that's
used
why I
to it.
say that's why I call it a mind war, and that's why I try to dispel the hostile media narrative and get people around me and my community. I do everything I can to get them off Facebook, to get them off their smartphones, to get them to stop listening to cable news, and to only focus on the things around them and to empower and to build any type of local community thing that we can. Now, thankfully, where I live, there's a lot of that. We have local events, we have plenty of people here with local farms, we trade eggs and fruit and produce. We have many small businesses here that haven't died yet. It's a pretty good place, and I do everything I can to contribute to keeping that healthy. And that's why I advocate that everyone who can do that should do that. That's what everyone should be investing in, because that's what we can control. And in doing that, you help fight this anti-us narrative, because you're showing people a better way of living, and the more you get them invested in that, the less they care about the anti-white media and all the lies of the politicians, because it just doesn't matter to them as much anymore.
I have a question that is again a segue from what you say, but still linked to it, because you are using, as you explain, like your not your own language, but you try to take back the words and the meaning of them, and fight some mind war, and talk about crime statistic, blah blah blah. It's like you are delving into information to decipher the actual meaning of things. What do you think or say or answer to people when they call you maybe like a conspiracy theorist, that you are just like Alex Jones and stuff like that? Because I'm sure that has
Well,
happened to you.
that happens sometimes, but one of the ways that I avoid being called a conspiracy is I avoid historical revisionism, and I avoid crimes, because those things are heavily vilified in the news. So, for example, I don't talk about Holocaust denial. I don't talk about black crime statistics. How, oh, well, non-whites kill more than white people, because that kind of talk doesn't reach people. It doesn't land with people. Because it doesn't matter how many lies about World War II that I can dispel. It doesn't matter about the history of the French Revolution. And it doesn't matter how much I know about what actually happened between the Union and the Confederacy of the War of Southern Independence. It doesn't matter what I know about that. When you try to talk about that...
Have you watched about the frogs turning gay?
When I do what now? I didn't catch that.
Have you watched stuff about frogs turning gay? I don't know if you get the reference.
I don't get that reference. I'm sorry.
It's a meme from Alex Jones. They are turning the frogs gay.
I didn't understand what. I'm sorry, I didn't get it at first. No, I understand. Your words make sense now. Right. Yeah, that's why I avoid that kind of thing. I don't try to tell everybody that the poison in the water is turning frogs gay. Right. I don't do that. I keep the focus on relatable, normal things that are not deniable. The way that I reach people is when something comes on, like, I'll use my mother and her friends as an example. They'll have television, and every commercial will have a mixed race couple. And I'll say to them, aren't you tired of the white erasure in the commercials? Aren't you tired of them showing you that white people can't be in a family together? And they say, yeah, I've noticed that. And I say, well, then maybe you should consider not watching television and not supporting cable news, because they're just showing you anti-white lies. They're trying to make you hate yourself or teach you that it's okay for white people to be replaced. So I keep it relevant, and I focus on things that are in front of people that they can't deny. So I don't like to bring up the history and trying to tell them that they've been lied to about history and, oh, well, the Confederacy in America should have won because the Union was the bad guy and blah, blah, blah. That is a bad talking point. That's a bad approach to getting people to open up to the fact that the media lies to them and they would be better off without it. I do my best to handle what's directly in front of them. A good example is the war in Ukraine, right? So many people around here...
That's a big topic.
Yeah, so many people around here constantly want to bring up and talk about the war in Ukraine. And I usually say, I think that we shouldn't be concerned about that unless we can stop it. And since we can't stop it, we should focus on the things that we can help, which is trying to get this anti-whiteism out of our schools. because we know that in public school they're teaching transgenderism, they're teaching children that being homosexual is okay. They're trying to enforce homosexuality and sex acts at a younger and younger age. That is a war against us. That's a war that we can help fight here. And not only should we not support a war around the world that's going to get more of our own people killed, we should focus on the war at home that's poisoning and killing the minds of our children. So no matter what the topic is, I'll use what other people bring up or what is in front of their faces as a way to get them to face that the narrative and the politicians and the media are lying to them and are hostile to them. And I've had good success doing that. So that's why I encourage people to use the Go Free method. That's the book I linked earlier. The language and the dialectic tools in that book help you with your speech pattern. They give you useful, healthy phrases and words to say to regular people around you. And then you have to be mindful of avoiding things like crime statistics and mass migration and ethnic percentages, because that stuff sort of makes you sound like either a hater, like you just hating on white people, or it makes you sound like an Alex Jones crackpot and nobody wants to listen to you. So that's why I avoid that stuff when I talk to people.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't resist to put some memes on on the stream.
Oh, I've seen them and I've been enjoying them. I like memes.
Yeah, there is the Alex Jones is a space marine or like Doom guy.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's a gray night. That's a gray night with his
exactly. I'm glad you recognized it.
I do.
But it's funny because I'm sorry, I must say that for the people who might not like it, but most of the things that Alex Jones spoke of are true. Like, it just takes time, and like in terms of percentage, I think it's like 80 and 20%, something like that.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like I'm not an avid Alex Jones listener.
No,
But
me neither. But I'm a member of well, not member, but I'm on the Discord, and sometimes I go in the Sultans of Shadileh stream. Not for a while now, but I used to, and they talk about the stuff that he spoke about, and most of them were true. Not the
yeah,
craziest one, but for example, the gay frog theory was actually verified. It's not that
yeah.
it turns the frogs gay. It's like they,
It's that the chemicals were triggering
yeah,
the amphibians genetics, because many amphibians have genetics that can allow them to become hermaphroditic, to be able to produce both male and female sex cells
yeah,
for more rapid procreation at times of need, and the chemicals were triggering that. So it wasn't that it was turning them gay; it was triggering a hermaphroditic genetic quality that they had.
yeah, and they just like mess with the libido. Well, not maybe libido, but like they just wanted to fuck. And mate and stuff like that, or for
Yeah.
example, he explained like in the prehistory where the dinosaur was alive and stuff, that there were
Hmm.
actually more carbon in the world than in the air, and that's what made like the flora and the fauna so big.
Hmm.
Because much more carbon, so much bigger life forms. And yeah, so some of the crazy stuff that he spoke about were technically true. He's so bombastic and so dramatic, and yeah,
Yeah.
you have to love the personality of the guy. It's so entertaining.
Yeah. No,
But
he's
yeah,
fun. He's fun.
but speaking about, to get back to the topic, because there is a personal question. I might probe you a bit
Sure.
if you allow me.
Of course.
You spoke a lot, and maybe some people like you, that you have to reach people, that you have to use certain words or behave a certain way, blah blah blah. Isn't it in a way trying to convert them if you look at it in a certain way?
No, I'm not trying to convert anyone.
No,
I'm
no,
not
I
trying to
know,
talk.
but someone can say that. You know what I mean?
Well, my question is, well, convert them to what? I'm not trying to convert anyone to an ideology or a religion. I'm just trying to get people off of the poison. I want people to stop
Yeah, yeah, I
basing
know,
their
and
lives off of the lies of the narrative. I'm just trying to get them to move away from the poison long enough to think for themselves and realize what's important.
Yeah,
And
I know, and you know that I'm on your side, but I try to think about it like we accuse, I include myself because I don't like them much either, but um,
mhm,
like the left, the woke, the LGBT crazy stuff like
mhm,
that, they say,
uh-huh.
oh, if we want to have drag show with the children, we have to convince the parent, we have to say this and that. So in a way, it's kind of like the same process. I hope that you know what I'm trying to get at.
Well, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
I disagree that it's the same process because their
Okay.
process is using lies and intimidation and government and corporate power to force people to give them what they want for their ideological goals.
Okay.
I don't really have an ideology. I don't have ideological goals. Like, I'm not trying to get people to be national socialist and I want to overthrow the government and kill Jews. Like, I'm not trying to talk them into anything. I'm not trying to get them to
And you
become
don't
part
want power, by
of
the way, also.
right. I'm not. Well, I mean, in a way, I want power, but I want to empower the people of our country. I want the people of our countries to not give up and to take their fate into their own hands.
So maybe we
So
can vote for you for president?
I mean, I would probably be a good one, but that will never happen. But
I would
the,
probably go a great one.
well, I don't know about great, but I would be better than the crap that we have now. But anyway,
Not to boast or anything, but I'm awesome.
oh no, I'm just saying I'd be better than the retards that we have in our government now. But anyway, no,
Yeah, it's
like
like
for me,
a way of.
it's not the process. It's not the process that 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 I do that I think is like them. Yes, I am trying to influence people, but I use positive propaganda, truthful propaganda. Because propaganda just means a message that has an intent. That's the commercials can be propaganda, anything can be propaganda because propaganda means you have a message and an ideological or ethological goal that you want people to notice with the thing that you're putting forward. That's propaganda. So I consider myself a positive, truthful propagandist. I want people around me and all throughout the West to be to focus on what is true, what is real, and to stop listening to the lies of the government and the media. Because we need to stop being gaslit and manipulated and tricked into giving our future away. And I don't really care about politics. I don't care about ideology unless it's actively trying to kill me and my people. And so I am a reactionary. I am I guess you could say, a reactionary force to the process of the anti-white narrative because I am counter-ideological, but I don't have a particular ideology to push of my own. I just want people all throughout the West to be able to be who they are. Are you a Catholic in Portugal? Are you a pagan in Germany? Are you a Christian in America? Well, I want you to care about that and to not give your future away. I want you to be invested in your ethnos, in your religion, in your community, and I want you to stop listening to the lies of the politicians and the corporations and the evil media. And I want you to get away from that and focus on what's real and true. So that's my goal. So I don't think that I'm the same, and I don't think that I'm doing the same kind of thing as they are. Because they are trying to use force and lies to make everyone be a part of their ideological goal. I just don't want that to happen because it will destroy everything I hold dear and everything that I think matters.
But just to make sure I never accuse you or anything, I'm just, like, yes, probing you a bit, but it's in a kind way. I don't want to upset you or anything.
Oh, certainly. I'm
I'm
not
just
upset at all. I'm
okay, okay.
fine. I'll answer any question that you have
Yeah.
as honestly as I can.
But yeah, it was a question I had in my mind in many like the space that you created on your channel, the sultans, the cabal with Uzalu and stuff. That this kind of space, which are a bit more political focused than other place. And I
Hmm.
always thought myself, yeah, but in a way, these people and maybe me, I may include myself,
Hmm.
we are using the same tactic, like trying to convince people a way to uh, make them join us maybe it's something I'm still thinking about, but It's because they are using the same, more or less, not entirely, but more or less the same word you are using. I remember the people about the transgender issue and problematic. They say, "Oh, we just want to protect our people. We just want the truth, blah blah blah," and they twist everything in a way that is so insane and so unhealthy, of course. But in a way, they use the same words and the same tactic, maybe. Again, with
Okay.
quotation mark, of course. I'm not accusing you or anything. It's just that it's something I think a lot about.
Well, sure. I mean, yes. There are many people of different, let's call them camps of thought, not necessarily ideology, but using the cabal as they are English liberal free
Can
speech
you,
focused.
sorry to interrupt you, can you introduce the cabal to the people, because I'm not sure that everyone know of the cabal.
Oh, sure. There was one of the most censored people that I know that tried to speak the truth about COVID and tried to speak the truth about Brexit and all the other stuff that has been hurting us. His name is Uzulu. That's his screen name, not his real name, obviously.
Yeah, Uzalu.
And
I will write
yeah, and his cabal. I'll put the link in the chat. The cabal is a large Discord server that we care about finding the truth and talking about the truth. And Uzulu and many of the people involved in the cabal are a more politically center, sort of like Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad. They are of a centrist or slightly right-leaning English liberal mindset where they
He's
value free
English too.
speech.
I didn't know he was English, Uzalu.
Yeah, Uzulu is very English. Yes, he's
Okay.
very English. But he usually just covers American news like a lot of people. But um, he where was I? Oh, people in the cabal care about uh the right to keep and bear arms, the right to your own property, the right to teach your children what you want, the religious freedoms, freedom of speech and expression, freedom of association. They are very much of the classic English liberal and American constitutionalist camp of political thought. But you have people of all across the spectrum joining the cabal because it is a place where people come together to not feel alone and talk about all the crazy crap we have to deal with all the time and all the lies in the news. So that's the kind of group that the cabal is.
But yeah, they are kind of accepting, because I still last time I checked, they were still Falco Shin, the guy who is so left that the extreme left will not
Yeah, I mean,
accept.
sometimes, yeah, it's not common, but sometimes you'll get someone who is a communist who will
Yeah.
come by and want to argue with us. Sometimes you'll get someone who's one of these crazy Nazi people that loves Hitler and they want to talk about the Third Reich all the time, these crazy Nazi nuts. Sometimes you'll get one of those that comes in and stays for a while and argues with us, but they don't really stay
Yeah.
because it's not a good environment for them because we shut down their lies, and usually they're just some idiot spurred kid that doesn't know any better, like a teenager or something. But the regulars in the cabal are sensible people. Sometimes they're like internet weirdos, but in general they're pretty decent people, I
Well,
guess. But
we are
most of the
all
people
internet
in the
windows.
cabal, yeah, but most of the people in the cabal care about the truth. They care about living a decent, honest life, and they care about freedom of speech and freedom of association. That's most of the people in the cabal. That's sort of their primary thing. And so I sort of fall into that camp. I am more of the lower right wing, Hoppian ANCAP libertarian type of philosophy. I think that people should be able to govern themselves and create their own communities and their own protectorates to keep other people out. I think that is the most natural, normal, healthy thing that people do. And I think that we should organize around communities and small states. And so I'm of a minarchist, Hoppian ANCAP approach to sort of my philosophy on life. But that doesn't really intersect with the advocacy that I do for stopping the lies of the media and stopping the anti-white narrative and all of that. That just personally, I'm more of the lower right quadrant of how I think that is healthy for me and my people to structure things, which is that might just be because I'm an Anglo, and a lot of Anglos are that way. So,
But
and a lot of Germans are that way too.
listening to you, I was thinking, about the maybe we use the same tactic as the other guy. That you speak a lot about truth, and
Hmm.
I'm sure that Monsieur Bier in the chat will agree because we are kind of alike on that front about politics and ideas and debate and stuff. Even like you too, by the way. In the
Hmm.
thing that we kind of enjoy thinking, philosophy, stuff like that, but we don't engage actually strongly in politics because it's kind of tiring after a while. But people on the right, or at least called the right, are way
Hmm.
more accepting and way more honest in their way of engaging in debate and discussion about ideas, and they
Hmm.
try to actually finding the truth.
Hmm.
Like debunk stuff, checking, double checking, trying to find the missing piece on some puzzle, stuff like that. And
Hmm.
the left, or for some people, like for example, I mentioned the transgender activist, they just
Hmm.
find one or two article uh, that sway in their way and call it a day. That's it. Enough. Good enough.
Well, I think instead of a left or right, I think that the best
Yeah,
way
I'm
to say
using
it
words
is.
yeah,
Oh, I know, but I'm trying to make a point here.
yeah.
There are those who care about what the truth is, and then there are those who try to create their own truth. And that's really the dividing line. Because you can call that left and right, but to me, if you the, the real thing here is people who want to face reality and face what is true, and people who want to reject reality and assert their own truth. And the transgenders are this way. All of the big leftist state government people are this way. The communists are like this. They want to defy nature and defy reality and assert their truth over what is actually true. And then all of the people that are like us, we aren't like that. We care about what is actually true and then reactionarily responding to that. And so it's that's really the dividing line of ideological political camps these days is you have this army of spiteful mutants, the feminists, the transgenders, the marxists, the leftists, the World Economic Forum technocrats, the Bill Gateses. They all defy reality. They want to live forever. They want to have infinite growth. They want line go up GDP forever. They hate white people. They think all the evils of the world come from cis men. They hate cisgenders. They have this entirely make-believe version of truth. This is the anti-white narrative. They
Yeah,
believe, masculinity is toxic. They believe white people should be guilty. They think that everyone's born a blank slate and genetics doesn't matter. They think that all of these other crazy things that we know are simply just not true. They assert that those things are true and that all of culture, all of civilization, all of history needs to be changed to support their fake truth. So they want to create truth. We want to find what the truth is and then react to it instead of creating it. That's the real dividing line of different camps of thought today. Or is
It's
that
funny.
dichotomy?
It's funny because what you describe about live forever, blah blah blah. You were describing a chaos cultist in Warhammer 40K. but
Yeah, yeah. One
sometimes
one could definitely look at the army of blue hairs and transgenders and think that we are being invaded by cultists of Slanesh
yeah, or Sinch, yeah, maybe.
or Sneech. Yeah.
But yeah, it's I definitely understand your point, and it's it's sad because in a way I not sympathize, but I can understand why they behave like that. But in the other side, I'm like, but that's definitely not good, not healthy, not sane, not anything, and
Hmm.
because when you are so deep into something and sometimes suffering, you see things through one prism always. And this lead me to a question that I know it can be a very long answer for you, so try to condense it a
Okay.
tiny bit. But what do
Okay.
you think of the phrase everything is political? Because for those people that you spoke of, For example, the blue hair stuff and the um,
Uh-huh.
the most vibrant activists of them all, they always say everything is political. Even the books, the music you listen to, the porn you jerk off to, everything is political. So what's your take on that?
Well, I think there's truth to that because when you look at the culture we live, everything after 1945, after the Nuremberg trial, has been part of the liberal world order propaganda. Everything. Everything in your school books, everything in your encyclopedia, everything on the radio, everything in television has been sculpted by war machine propaganda, the CIA, international conglomerates that are invested in the Allies' liberal
So
machine.
CIA on my bingo card. Yes, you mentioned it.
Well, the reason why I bring that up is most people don't know that even going back to the Cultural Revolution in the United States in the 1950s and the 1960s, the CIA and and non-CIA, the agents of the American government, they actively worked with radio, television, record producers, music companies. They told them what messages and what types of music they wanted to promote, and in many cases financially incentivized or put their own agents of the government into media and television and record company and radio company specifically to push a message that was part of the liberal world order. They wanted to sculpt people's mind into this global liberal melting pot of lies. And so in a way, when the Marxoids and all the leftist idiots, when they say, oh, everything's political, that's not what they mean when they say that, but that phrase is still kind of true. Because think about what it's like today. You walk out into, let's say you go to a city, any major city in France or Germany or England or anywhere, you go to a major city, you see posters, you see billboards. Everything has a political message, whether it's a racial message talking about we need to be more diverse and white people are evil.
Are
You might
you
see feminist stuff about toxic masculinity. It's going to be in all the commercials you see. It's going to be in the video games you play. It's going to be in the comic books you read. It's going to be in the cartoons made for your children. This kind of message, this kind of total propaganda is in everything. So yes, you could say everything is political because it is. That's how we're forced to live.
do you talk about or this is a reference maybe to the special glasses from the movie They Live, like with obey, conform, everything?
I think that what we live under is much worse because at least the messages in that said it wanted us to breed. But the only message we get from the lizard aliens today is you must, if you're white, you must breed with a non-white because white people are evil and must be exterminated. So that's the message that they give us. So even the hostile aliens in They Live have a kinder message for us than the anti-whites who govern us today.
Okay, I see. So yeah, it's in a way a reference to that. Okay, but you are
Yeah.
you are not wrong, and Carpenter was definitely not wrong.
Yeah.
But still, I'm
Because the
like I get, but this is the tiny bit where I'm not debating, but I'm thinking out loud.
Sure.
It's not that I don't agree with it because I definitely get where you are going to, but it's
Hmm.
not like because you bought this type of bread in this grocery store with this money from your job that you actually engaging in a political act. It's like I'm just buying bread. Shut up.
Well, I don't think that stuff is political. That's not what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think every action we take is political. I think that for some people, but for most people, I don't think they care. I think it's just I want to buy bread because I want a sandwich. I want to go to work because I want to feed my children. I want to go to work so I have money to go to a football game with my friends.
Yeah.
I think that's what most people think of. They just do what they have to do to get through life and do the things that bring them some kind of joy to make life less miserable. That's why most people do the things they do.
Yeah. In a way, we are on the same wavelengths about this because technically, yes, you can retrace everything to a political decision. Like, for example, the bread. Yes, but we had this policy on grain and this policy on the farmer, and you have to tax blah blah blah. So the farmer has to give his wheat to this grocery store and not have his own stock, blah blah blah. So we can politicize everything in a way, but at some point it's like stop it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I said what I said earlier. Is
Yeah.
I don't think that it's healthy to live that way and to think of everything in the terms of I want my political side to win. I have to buy the right bread and go to the right store and watch the right show because of politics and blah 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 blah. I don't think that that's healthy, and I think that a lot of the people who end up that way are very unhealthy, dangerous people because they kind of go off the deep end and they're sort of hostile and dangerous to be around, whether left or right. I'm not talking about just leftists. It's usually leftists, but it can be people on the right too. They can get that way. But
it reminds me of when I was watching Jeremy from the Quartering, because no, I don't anymore. It's not that I don't like the guy. It's just like I have some mood sometime when I want this content on this content. And he spoke about Thanksgiving, because I know it's a very big thing for you in the US. We don't have that in Europe, of course, but we get the gist of what this event is and this celebration. And I know that in the US, there is many people who say, I don't celebrate Thanksgiving because massacre Indian, blah, blah, blah. And Jeremy was mimicking this speech and these people, and he said, just shut up and eat your turkey.
Yeah, just shut up and eat your turkey.
I definitely get the thing, because we have almost the same stuff with Christmas. Yeah, I don't celebrate Christmas because Coca-Cola, capitalism, blah blah. I just want to give you present and eat cheese, melted cheese, and so shut up. This is because of you we don't have nice things. Because yeah, at some point it's like Valentine's Day is a consumerist stuff, but isn't it nice to offer something to your loved one? I know you don't have to give on this occasion, but it's still nice either way.
It's important. It's important to have traditions and holidays and reasons to celebrate what came in your past to make you the person that you are today. And this is the kind of thing that corporatism and anti-whiteism and all of this ugly state of being in this consumerist world, it strips you of that connection to your past, to your people, to your religion, to everything that made us what we are. All of this consumerist anti-white crap, it robs that from you. And that's why I try to get people off of TV, I try to wean people off the news, and get them to focus on things that really matter, celebrating their family, celebrating traditions, celebrating religion. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Christianity, but whatever that means to you, whatever your spiritual, cultural, ethnic identity is to you. Maybe you're a Muslim that lives in Jordan. Maybe you're a Hindu that lives in India listening to this.
I think you have your friend Reptile in the chat, I think.
Oh, hey, Reptile. Good to see you. Bonjour, mon ami.
I think
or not,
this is the guy.
May-ami, not mon ami. May-ami. There we go.
So this is the shirt guy.
Yeah, this is the guy who got me the jersey we talked about earlier. Yes.
Howdy to you, like you say in your part of the world.
Reptile lives in the same mountains I do, just a little further north. So we have a similar accent, and we both say howdy.
So you play the banjo, and he plays the spoons.
No, my uncle plays the banjo. I play the guitar. I don't play the banjo.
I tried for fun. I tried to play the spoon one time or two, and I was like, "Da fuck, this is hard."
My mother's really good at the hammer dulcimer, and the hammer dulcimer is a beautiful instrument. I can play it okay, but I'm not very good at it. But I play guitar a little better than I play hammer dulcimer, but I'm not very good at either one of them because I've never really cared much for making my own music. But I know how to play a little bit of dulcimer, and I know how to play a little bit of guitar.
You spoke about religion, and here you spoke about the value of the countryside of the United States. And I know
Uh-huh.
that in the US and in the countryside, religion might be important for some people. You mentioned like Amish people and stuff like that. So
Uh-huh.
in your part of the world, this has a deeper impact than here in Europe. For the most part, it's a thing of the past in Europe, and unfortunately, or
I'm
fortunately,
sorry to hear
depending.
that. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Uh,
it's both fortunate and
yeah,
unfortunate.
but
It's
can you?
I would like there to be. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Please go ahead.
Oh no, no, it's okay. But can you explain this for you? Why is it so important and still alive in the US and your part of the world? Because I know that it is something important for you. You speak about religion and spirituality more often than not in your working video.
Hmm. Well, it's because, in my opinion, I don't think that we will ever have a great civilization as atheists if we only concern ourselves with if we make the highest pinnacle of achievement material things because of the desire of man. That is a downward slope that will only lead to someone else conquering us who believes in something greater and bigger. Every civilization was made by people who believed in something non-material, spiritual, that was bigger than just material need and material gain. And this is why I say that it's very, very important to have something metaphysical, non-material as your guiding force, because it's bigger than you. And human beings, if they don't have anything bigger than need or material gain, they don't have anything to bind them together in something greater. And when you look at people that do have that, like the Amish, like the Hasidic Jews, or even the Muslims of ISIS, the most terroristic Muslims that we've known, those people were able to achieve things and do things to other people and get their way because they believed in something. They had guiding forces, they had passion, ethos, and like I said earlier in the stream, if a man has nothing to die for, he has nothing to live for.
Yeah, the
So you have,
value of sacrifice is something quite lost to them.
and more so than just that, I'm talking about a civilization, not just survival, not just a little community of people here in the mountains. But if you have to start small, you have to have something that gives your life purpose and meaning and depth and value and connection to others. And that can't be, I need money because I need to buy a football ticket. You can't have that. You can't have that mentality as a guiding force for a civilization, because it's all petty, it's all low spirit, and only the high spirit leads to a true civilizational crest, to a civilizational boost. And so that's why I want people to make their lives about something more than just material need. And here in Appalachia, where I live, people believe in the Christian divine order. They believe that God created the universe because he wants man to live in it and celebrate his creation and glorify God. That's the driving ethos, the driving spiritual metaphysics of this area. And it gives people here an identity. It gives people here a binding glue that gives people a major component of an ethnicity. Your ethnicity is not just your genetics, it's not just your race. An ethnicity is not just your cultural politics. An ethnicity is more than that. It's a fusion of belief and spirit and a guiding force and cultural history and the people themselves, an ethnic group, a racial group. Those things are all critical elements to a healthy ethnicity and to building a healthy civilization. You have to have all the pieces or you cannot be successful. And that's why I say, whoever you are, maybe you're a pagan, maybe you celebrate and worship non-Christian entities and gods, or you worship nature, that's fine. Maybe you are a Christian, maybe you're a Muslim or a Jew or a Hindu. Whatever that is for you, you need to make that an important part of your life and your cultural identity. You need to have that. You have to invest in that because that's bigger than you. That's bigger than your material needs. And in pursuing that, we become something more than just a family. We become a community. We become a real ethnic group, and that will become a civilization. That's how all civilizations we know of have arisen.
What about, if I may play the devil's advocate once again? What about people who are agnostic or atheist, but they don't pursue material goals. They not believe in something spiritual or religious, but they pursue their own things. You know what I
I will
mean?
see, yes, and I do because I am that person.
Okay.
In my own mind, in my own heart, I do not know what faith is. I cannot have faith. I can't believe that a God is real. I can't believe in an afterlife because my mind is too skeptical and too logical. So I've never been able to believe that magic is real or gods are real. I've just never been able to believe that. But I am a practicing Christian because the people in my community are. And I acknowledge that we need
And do you
some
think
kind of metaphysical element, so I participate and honor the beliefs and the folklore and the traditions of my people. And that means I also honor non-Christian expressions of my people as well, like Asatru that I mentioned. I think the Asatru pagans are good people. They want good things, and it's a healthy European expression. I think that's a beautiful thing. I
what
support them,
about
even though I don't technically have faith in any magic or spiritual gods or anything.
if I may, your neighbors, the people in your community that you, I think you do like a special mess or something in your own house or the house of your mother. I don't remember. You,
Uh-huh.
you
Yeah,
mentioned it.
we have a church. My mother and I have a church service in our house every Sunday
Yeah.
morning.
So the people of your community, they are true believer and practitioner, or like
Yes.
maybe they are like you, a bit skeptical on the fence. Or...
No. The women and the two guys that are part of my mother's little church service, they came from her church when her church became infected by the anti-whites, and an anti-white woke preacher took over the church and destroyed it. Um, the people of that church decided to carry on the community of the church in their own houses, and so
Okay.
now my mother's church community, the community I'm part of, the Christian community I'm part of, we meet at each other's houses and we visit other churches that have not
That's
become.
wholesome.
Yeah, it's very wholesome, and exactly, and that's why I say that we have to take our destiny into our own hands. And if a church becomes corrupt, then we eschew it, we leave it,
Mm.
we make our own. If a school becomes corrupt and we can't change it and fix it, then we abandon it, we let it rot, we let it die, and we make our own. The people in South Africa,
I'm doing
their
my own
farms.
casino with blackjack and hookers.
Yeah, I'm going to make my own casino with blackjack and hookers. Yeah, exactly. And so we need to be the benders. We have to make our own community, our own ethnicities, our own schools and churches and businesses and things. We have to do that. And so that's the people here that I associate with, the Christians, they are true believers, and that gives them a strength. It gives them something metaphysical that they share, and it gives them something that binds them together that is more than just material need. Now, I have my problems with Christianity, especially the way that it's changed in the last couple hundred years. I have a lot of problems with Christianity, but it's at least something. It's something that gives people here one of the necessary elements of having a strong ethnicity. And so I participate in it. I view it as a necessary part of what makes us Appalachians. We are very Protestant. We are very Southern Baptist Christian here. That's part of our identity. And it would be different if I could just flip a switch and say, hey, I think that Asatru, or I think Catholicism, or I think Islam is better. I don't, but let's say I thought that. It's not like I can just flip a switch and make everybody here convert to being a Muslim or convert to being Asatru.
Mm.
That's not how that works. You have a people. You are born into being Islamic or being Jewish or being Christian. You're born and raised into that if you are raised by people who really believe it and teach you to believe it, like I was. It didn't work on me. I can't have faith. I can't feel it. But I got that upbringing. Ethnically, I am a Protestant Christian. I am a Appalachian Baptist. That's how I was raised. That's how I learned about the divine. That's how I learned about right and wrong. That's how I learned about things. I ethnically am a Christian. You can't take that away from me. It doesn't matter what else I choose to believe or choose to participate with. I was born and raised a WASP. I am an Appalachian Christian. That's how my mind is. That's what my ethnicity is. That's how I will die. And you can't change that. Or at least I can't change that. Now, if you didn't get a religious upbringing, I guess maybe you can choose, but I don't know. Like, to me, I feel like that's part of the ethnic identity of people here, because everyone participates in church from the time you're a little kid. You're taught the Bible, you're taught to memorize Bible verses, you pray together, you celebrate God together, you sing Christian songs together. It's a huge part of the cultural ethnic identity here. It's huge. And so if you were to take away Christianity from my identity, it would almost be like you're taking away the English language from my identity. It's a crucial part of what makes my ethnicity here in Appalachia what it is.
It reminds me of what Mr. Bier is saying in the chat. Like, there are a lot of French person in France who does not believe in God at all, but continue to apply the Christian culture. So, in a way, it's what you are doing, but a bit more devotee in a way. In a bit more like active, because at least to my knowledge in Europe or France, Belgium, Germany, there's still like Christian value and stuff, but it's like it's imprinted in the mind and the culture, but we almost entirely forget what the roots were.
Yeah. And one of the reasons that I don't disparage Christians, I know there's a lot of problems with it. Like, I get it, but especially from people that are racially conscious, there's a problem among a lot of Christians where for so many generations now, the anti-white liberal order lie of race doesn't matter, that is pushed by Christians of, oh, we're all the same in God's eyes, which that's not true. It's not true in the Bible, and it hasn't been true in the history of God, of Christendom. Like, Christendom has always been racially conscious and ethnically conscious, just like everything was before the modern era. So there's a lot of this ugly anti-whiteism in Christianity as well. But I mean, what am I going to do? Like, I can't just, like I said, I can't flip a switch and change the religion of my people. I just can't do that. So
Yeah,
it's
and
part
I'm
of
sure
it's
that
part of who we are here. So
I'm sure that even if you are not a person of faith, you cherish your heritage and your upbringing and your
I do,
culture, and yeah.
I do,
For example,
and
I was baptized. I had I think that the name is the same, but I had the two communion, not the third one, but the first two I did.
mhm.
And I'm not religious at all, like definitely not, but like most people, I ask question, I think and I reflect and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, maybe if I'm not a person of faith, I don't regret doing that, because for
Mhm.
the reason I did it back in the day, even I was a wee little lad, and for the baptism I had no choice because I was a baby, but I'm okay with it. I don't mind. I don't mind. Maybe it
Yeah,
will prove that demons can go to heaven.
maybe so, maybe so. And I and even though I've never been able to have faith, I would like to think that whatever afterlife is, if it's real, whether it be Asgard or Valhalla or the Christian heaven or whatever, if there really is magic and metaphysics
A
and an
metal
afterlife,
festival, oh yes.
oh man, that'd be great. But if that stuff is real and I just can't feel it, I hope that that doesn't preclude me from being able to be a part of it when I'm dead, because I want to do what's right. I want to do what's right to my people. I want to do what I think is good and righteous in the world.
Yeah,
And
same.
I hope that if magic and gods actually are real, I hope that my actions prove that I deserve to be among my kin in Valhalla, even if I can't truly
You
believe in it.
know,
I hope so.
we will not go too deep into religion and stuff, but this is one of the thing that I really like about our camp, so to say, to get back to the maybe we use the same method as the other guys, is that we don't know if we are doing the right thing. We do our best to make sure of it, but in the end, we never say like I know I'm right. Like I think I do. I run several tests. I do my research. I think about it for like 20 years, but at one point I have to make a decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it reminds me one of the thing I'm thinking about for my action and my stuff and etc. is my father, because I lost my father when I was a baby. Like he
Hmm.
died 5 or 6 day 5 or 6 day before my third birthday, so I was 2 years old at the time. And I just want, if he still is there somewhere, I don't know, and if I meet him once again, I just want to know that he's proud of me, like I did good. Like
Yeah.
was I a good boy?
Yeah.
And in this is the thing I like about religious people, is that they they do things for the greater good, for the greater purpose. Like you said, something bigger than us,
Hmm.
something bigger than our ego, something bigger than the thing we are actually doing. For example, I always think in like, are my books good? Are my video nice? Do I spread a nice message? Do I think the good things? But I will never know. I think I will never know. I just bank on some assumption. I don't know if it resonates with you, but it's something that I really like about the religious people, because they they appeal to that. We do
Yeah,
our
they do.
best with the time at hand.
Yeah, and I like that about the good Christians here is they believe that they should be kind and build good things, not just because it gets them money or because it makes their children have a better future, but they believe that there is a magical supernatural force that wants them to be good and wants them to do good, and they have a larger connection to that, and they work in service to it. And I think that's very admirable.
Mm.
And I wish that more people would be like, and I don't really necessarily care what that is because I'm such a logical utilitarian. But, it again, if I got to pick something, it would be maybe a mix of Asatru, pagan, Odinic, Nordic type of stuff for us because, Anglo-Saxons, the people that my people come from, we come from the island of Albion. We come from Northern Europe. We come from the Viking area, the Germanic tribes. I wish that the primary religious expression was of that and not of Levantine origin, because that origin isn't really of my people. And I
What
know
do
that
you mean the
Christianity,
11?
Levantine meaning ancient Hebrew, Middle
Okay,
Eastern,
okay, okay.
like that's where the origin of Christianity comes from. And even though a lot of the good building blocks of our civilization do come from like Greece and the Levantine area and Zoroastrianism and those old things, a lot of that stuff is baked into the building blocks of Greece and the Roman Empire and all that we get to today. So, there's always a connection going back to that stuff. But when it comes to religion, I I feel more kinship and more spiritual connection to Odin than I do to Jesus Christ of Nazareth.
Mm.
Even though I was raised Christian and I am a practicing Christian, I feel more naturally connected to the stories of Norse mythology than I do anything in the Bible. And I think that's because there's a biospiritual dissonance between myself and the origin of Christianity. Like, I don't feel like the characters in the Old Testament are relatable to me like the mythology that I've studied of Germanic and Norse mythology. I feel more connected to them at a paternal level than I do anything in the Bible. And that's why I wish that the religion of my folk here in Appalachia was either Odinic or Asatru or some other kind of pagan Germanic thing, is because I would probably feel more connected to that, and I probably wouldn't have moved away from my family and my community when I was younger. if I would have had something more natural, something more paternally connecting myself to something bigger than me. But I'm like, Christianity's never resonated with me. It's never felt like that it was written for me. It's never felt like it was designed for me and my people. It doesn't feel like it's a natural expression. It feels like something that I have to willingly take on
Yeah, a bit
from
forced.
outsiders. Yeah, and it's never set right with me. So that's why I say I wish that I was pagan. I wish I was Asatru or Odinic. I wish I was raised that way, but I wasn't. I don't know it. Like that kind of religious structure in my life has never existed. And so I've never been able to make it a tangible, real part of my life. But Christianity's always been there. It's around me in every direction. My own family, all my family's friends. It's in the businesses here. People have their little Jesus crosses everywhere. People have their little Jesus fish. Like it's an
Jesus
ever
fish.
present part. Yeah, the little Greek ichthus. Like they've got that on their cars. They've got it on their storefronts. Like it's a very very Christian place where I live,
Okay.
and it's part of who we are here. And I wish that it wasn't the case, but it is, and there's nothing I can do about that. So that's part
Yeah,
of who I am.
I
Even
understand.
though I wish it was different, it's just not the case.
It's almost the same for me. I would not say it was forced, but like I was baptized and communion and stuff, but I did it because it was there and not expected of me. That my parents never asked me to do it or anything. I did it for my own volition, but I did it because there was the only choice I had. Strangely enough, I don't know why, but I always had a deep connection, not connection, but something resonated in me with the American, like the old American religion, like the mythology, for example, the Indian American, or the Aztec, or stuff like that. The, the the belief they had like 1,000 years ago in America,
Hmm.
like the Great Spirit, the Great Buffalo, or like the Jaguar God and stuff like that. I don't know why, but it always appealed to me, in some way. I don't know why.
I like the spooky tale of the Wendigo.
Yeah,
Do you know the Wendigo?
yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's cool stuff.
But yeah, maybe if one day I go to America, we will go like I will ask you if you won't join me to visit like Indian reserve or stuff like that. Would be very
Oh yeah, that's
interesting.
fun. I've visited many of them across America, and I listen to their tales that they have. I listen to their stories about spirits and spirits of nature, and it's really interesting, weird mysticism. I like it. Cool.
Yeah, I don't romanticize them. Like I know that the American Indian was not angel and they did very brutal things and stuff, but
Yeah. Yeah, I
desperately
don't
is
I don't I don't romanticize them either. I just think it's interesting to learn about other people's lore and history and mythology. Like I've
yeah.
always found that stuff really interesting all around the world. I
But
think it's cool.
I must say that the spiritual life felt way deeper than other culture, at least to my feelings.
Well, I
The
don't know enough. I don't
yeah.
know enough about the Red Indian tribes to be able to say one way or the other. I don't know enough about them to say, but it is fun to visit their reservations, and
Mm.
a lot of times they'll have somebody that's working at like a visitor center or something where you can talk to people like, hey, tell me some cool Indian stuff about your tribe and your tribe's history. Sometimes they'll tell you cool stories and tell you about spirit. That's how I learned about the Wendigo when I was young. My
They
family took me to a
they do also
yeah.
representation like music and dance, and I watched a few
They
things
they
like
do
that.
those events here. I've never been to those events.
Yeah.
I've never been to watch like tribal dance stuff. I've never been to that. But when I was young, my family liked to travel all up and down the East Coast, and I think when I was 10 or 11, we went to a Cherokee reservation, and I got to learn a lot. That's where I first learned about the Wendigo. Was from some Cherokee guy who's telling
Mm.
me Red Indian tales stories. But I
Yeah.
just I like learning about different cultures and different peoples and different metaphysical models of the not just humanity but about different spooky things that go bump in the night. That kind.
Yeah, the Wendigo is one of the big bad, maybe the biggest bad they have, like in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
mythology. This is not the only one, but this is one that, if I remember correctly, the story goes like it's a curse that you have when you do cannibalism, something like that.
yeah.
And you are basically immortal, and you turn yourself into a bad spirit, like possessed with hunger and murder in
Yeah,
mind and stuff like that.
possessed by the darker nature of man, like lust and hunger and violence and that kind of thing. That's then you become the Wendigo.
Yeah. They turned the frogs Wendigo.
They're turning the freaking frogs into Wendigos. Watch out.
Speaking about frogs into monster, um, it's a bit more personal. So if I will do my best to be respectful and everything, but um,
You're my friend. You can ask me anything you want, and I'll answer honestly.
yeah, but I know that sometimes I'm clumsy. But we spoke many times together in private, and you do also on your channel, but a bit less. You don't spend so much time about that, but about the woke people, and you've been accused, like me, of course, and every nice person on the planet today, of being a
Huh?
homophobe, a transphobe, blah blah blah. The
Mhm.
LGBT Pokemon extremism is very real, and you yourself technically are a member of that because.
Well,
You are intersex, so I don't know how to.
I'm not part of the club.
Yeah, but technically.
Yeah.
But can you
I mean,
explain?
I'm an intersex male. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I'm an XXY chromosome intersex male. I had my condition. I say had because I had them removed, but that's why my title is Yizz The Eunuch. Is I'm an intersex male. I had ovotestes. That's what they used to call hermaphroditism, where you have slightly mutated genitalia with instead of regular gonads, meaning either ovaries or testes. My gonads were a fusion of the two, and
Mm.
it led to a lot of hormonal development problems when I was a child. My body was trying to have both male and female puberties at the same time. It gave me night terrors and hot flashes, and I had high and low blood pressure back and forth. It was a mess until I finally got the problem analyzed, and I got medication and surgery needed to
So
remove the
you
organs.
didn't know what happened to you?
Not at first, no. It took me several years to finally get medical attention to figure out why I was messed up.
When did you learn actually what you had?
Well, I don't like to speak ill of my mother, but she knew because the doctors told her that I was different when I was. And by the time that I was in middle school, which is between 10 and 13 years old, I could already tell I was different from the other because I always kind of looked like a girl, like a mix between a young boy and a young girl, and people thought that I was a girl half the time, or if they thought I was a boy, they'd make fun of me for being a girly boy or a sissy and stuff just because of how I was. And I always knew I was different. But then when I started learning about the sexual differences in humans, I don't mean like having sex, I mean like gender, like the
Yeah.
sexual difference. I learned that my genitals looked a little funny. They didn't look quite right. And when I talked to my mother about it, it was like I was asking her something that I shouldn't talk about. And I found out years later she knew because the doctors told her when I was born that I was different, had a condition.
Mm.
But because they were heavily religious, they wanted to just pray and rely on God to fix me, and they prayed that I would turn out okay. And they didn't get me hormonal help or surgery or anything when I was young. They just wanted to pray and get God to. So that was a big bone of contention between my mother and my father. I had a very uncomfortable childhood. My mother and father yelled at each other. They hated each other. They got divorced when I was 5. And I found out that a big part of it was me. That my father wanted to get me, quote unquote, fixed when I was little because he didn't want to just pray. And my mother was not of persuasion, and it caused a lot of problems. But anyway, eventually I discovered that I was different, like physiologically different from the other boys and girls in school. And that was not an easy time because, like I said, I was constantly hormonal because my body was flushing my blood with big gushes of testosterone and estrogen. And so I was going back and forth, and it made my life hell when I was developing. And
But
by the time I was 17, I had determined that I definitely had some kind of intersex condition. By the time I was 19, I found a doctor that was willing to help me get the treatment and surgery that I needed. And the first 20 years of my life was pretty bad. But the second 20 years was okay, and I'm doing my best to make a good go of things. And because of that experience, between the 90s and the mid aughts, I was trying to get insurance to cover the treatments and the surgery I needed. And those things are very expensive because the more niche, the smaller a number of people that a surgery or a medicine is for, the more expensive it is.
Mm.
So it was many, many thousands of dollars just to get the testing I needed to confirm certain. So I had to pay for
Before
that
the
out of pocket.
surgery.
And then the surgery itself was like
Damn.
it was going to be like $8,000. And then I needed to get hormone treatments before that just to make sure that it was the thing that I needed. They tried me on testosterone shots and other things to see how I would respond to the male hormone. That made me crazier. It gave me high blood pressure. It was bad. So then we had to spend another $1,000 to neutralize my hormones with Luprelin or Luprelene or whatever the generic name for Lupron is. And they had to neutralize my hormones. They tried me on estrogen. My body responded much better to that. And so they decided that was the one for me. So we scheduled my surgery, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's why I'm an estrogen creature, not a testosterone. Even despite being male, I'm an estrogen creature. It's just my body responds better to it.
To just recap, because to make sure, so you technically you are more leaning towards the male sex.
Yes,
Okay.
I am an intersex male, not an intersex female.
Okay.
And what that means is my genitalia looks more male than female.
Okay.
And I have at least a partially active Y chromosome. That's what determines me male. Because intersex people are not neutral. They are one or the other. You're either an intersex male or an intersex female. That's another lie that the LGBT mafia. That's another lie that they say.
Monsieur Bière, you remember, so on my Discord, it's nothing, but it's funny because I had someone who said, yes, but there is no gender because what about the intersex and blah, blah, blah. And I say, well, technically, yes, but it's like an exception or an anomaly, not to be disrespectful.
Yeah, but
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
the vast,
you confirm this, like, even in the intersex, there is still one or the other.
Right, and here's the thing. The vast majority of intersex people have no gender problems at all. Because being intersex is a medical problem. It's not an identity. When you're intersex, it means there's something wrong with your gonads, there's something wrong with your genetics and hormonal development, or there was a condition that you had in the womb of your mother that gave you some kind of mutation or some kind of endocrine and gonadular mutation that led to some strange vascular or genital malformity. Those are intersex conditions. Nothing else besides that is intersex. That's it. It's a medical mutation. It's a problem to be fixed with surgery and medicine. It's not an identity. And if you're intersex, you're either male or female. You're not in between. Sometimes intersex people do look a little gender mixed, but a lot of people that aren't intersex look gender mixed. There's a lot of tomboys and there's a lot of feminine guys, but they aren't intersex. That's just because humans are different. Like there's a lot of gender is like a sort of like a scale. Like, you can be a big, tough, hunky, masculine dude with big muscles and a big beard, but another guy that's like a thin little pipsqueak that has zits on his face, he's a man too. He's just a different kind of man. Even though the guy with big muscles and a nice beard, he's clearly more masculine than the skinny little pipsqueak with zits on his face. But they're both still men. They're both still dudes.
I always figured that the gender thing, the gender war and stuff like that, it's a scale. That you have two sides, but you can be like on the very extreme on one side, or like maybe a bit close to the middle, but still on one side. It's not
that's how it is.
A specter, but it's like you are one camp on the other, but you can be in different degrees in one camp.
Yeah, and so to go back to where I was in the story here, when I was trying to get insurance coverage, I was reaching out to people who I thought were going to help me get it, and that's how I became familiar with the Alphabet Mafia app.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And so they invited me to speak at panels that were speaking to insurance agents and speaking at universities and speaking to hospitals. And I would speak about my experiences as an intersex. Now, this is where I discovered how truly evil the Alphabet Mafia is. Because there were a lot of transgenders, there were a lot of non-binary people from universities that were at these meetings. And they would assume that I was ideologically just like them. And they would talk casually around me about trying to steal children away from Christians, about how they needed to get their ideology into schools so they could change the way people thought about gender and sex.
You, like you were
and not just me, they were using everyone. They and keep in mind, the people I was meeting, these were psychiatrists. These were people who worked as university professors.
Damn.
These weren't just idiots on the street. These evil people were already part of the establishment. And they talked around me like I was one of them. They would talk to me about Marxism openly, how they, like, to help push the Marxist agenda and to help defeat what they would call white supremacy, they needed to feminize masculine men. They needed to work against the white Christian patriarchy. They used those words to me. They said that to me behind closed doors. And I was like, these people are fucking evil. These are psychotic, evil people. I don't want to be associated with these people.
How old were you when you encountered these events?
I started in, I think, when I was 20 or 21.
So
And
still
I
pretty
went
young,
and
technically, like...
pretty young, yeah, because I didn't even leave my rural area until I was like, I think 19. So, you know, like, this was young in my adult life when I was learning what the world was actually like and learning what the world was outside of my rural, insular little Appalachian community.
And if I'm
And
correct, in the US, you cannot drink before 21, yeah, that's right.
yeah, in most places, yeah, that's correct.
So yeah, okay, you were not like 12, but still 20, 21, it's still...
But yeah, I was pretty young and inexperienced because I didn't know a lot about what the world was like. I didn't know what the other places in the country were like to live or to engage with as an adult. And I had to learn the hard way that people who say they want to help you are usually lying. They want to use you for
Yeah.
their agenda. And I had to learn that the hard way, but I'm glad I did because it showed me the evil underbelly of this alphabet mafia.
And the
It showed
people
me
you met...
it showed me that they are explicitly anti-white, anti-male, anti-American, and anti-Christian. It is an absolutely anti-Western series of ideas and activists that make the alphabet mafia. They are absolutely evil. They want evil things, and the people that are carrying it out, they know what they're doing. They told me that. Behind closed doors, they talked about that openly like I was one of them. They are very evil. It's a bad movement full of bad people.
And the people you met, the association and group and blah blah blah, did they actually did they do something actually like active and meaningful to help you get your money for the operation and medical help?
No. They
I
told me
bet.
that no.
It's just like
They
the
told me
Autism Association that I speak so much about. They are one
yeah.
of the more useless things in the universe. They just
Yeah.
talk
I
and
don't
talk and
like
talk
autism
and
speaks.
talk. Ah,
Yeah.
damn.
It's
I'm sorry for the little buzz, but
that's okay.
I'm so
That's
not
okay.
surprised because a little segue about autism. There are so many associations in for autism in France and Belgium that I try to get in touch with, for different reasons. For example, at the very beginning, I think I have autism. Can you help me? Blah blah blah. Oh no, you are an adult. Okay, what do I do? Beat me. Good luck. Okay, thank you. And when I
Yeah.
was with the too crazy for my my cancel problem, you know about, I tried to get in touch also with some association because they always speak about helping like neurodiversity, blah blah blah. So can you help me get in touch with a lawyer or like a toll group? I don't know, something for my problem. No, but you have to remember the problem is not you, it's the society, blah blah blah.
Yeah, that's what they told me too. They would always
Yeah,
when I would say,
I was
you
sure
know,
of
I would
it.
ask them like, "Okay, who can you tell me that will help me?" Well, they would give me names and numbers of people to call, but nothing ever came back from that. I would ask people for help, and I ended up always having to pay for everything out of pocket. Insurance almost never covered anything, no matter who I talked to or who I asked. No one actually cared about helping me.
Yeah.
But they sure wanted me to go to their meetings. They sure wanted me to sit in front of people and support their narrative of their transgender agenda and all this bullshit. They certainly wanted to use me for that, but did they ever actually help me? No. Did they ever did they ever save me any money? No. Did they ever do anything to help me get proper insurance coverage? No. They didn't help at all, because I don't think they actually care about helping. They just care about pushing their ideological goals.
Yeah, they didn't like offered you a lift, like a car drive, or offer you lunch money or something. At least for me,
Well,
it was
I didn't need
nothing.
those things. I had those things.
Yeah, but for me, I didn't. There was, and I was very upset about that. And I'm sure that there is some story like that for you in what you had the displeasure to live and go through. Um, one of the boss of the association in Belgium that I met, I actually helped her to do like an event like in a great park in Brussels. So it was not a small thing, not a big
Hmm.
thing, but not a small thing either, because they had guests, they had like a music event, they had like no, not weird stuff, but like massage to help people who have hard time with touch. You know what I mean? To help the children, like to de-stress the muscles and stuff, because people with autism sometimes have very much trouble with that. So they had like a very big network, and I helped her and I wrote for her in her blog and stuff. And I was like, so can you help me get in touch with some publishing house? Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
sure. Yeah, been 2 years now, so fuck you.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
dangle you the carrot in front of you to help them in their activist association stuff, but they never offered anything. That was my
Yeah.
experience, and I'm sure it's something relatable for you.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, that was my experience with all those people.
I'm
I don't
sorry
think
to
that.
speak a bit for my stuff, but it resonates
Oh, that's
so
okay.
much for what you said.
Oh yeah, certainly. No, you definitely had a similar experience to me. The people connected. I don't think that they cared more about getting pats on the back and getting social points with the people at their university and their corporation than they cared about helping.
Yeah, they want you to help them for their project and their like great war and stuff, their crusade, but you nothing. You have to be at their disposal for everything, and
Hmm.
I had heard some much more terrible stories from other people that were still inside the stuff, like someone who calls them in the night and you have to do this and that, and someone who is too nice that cannot say no. They like try to go to meet someone else to come to the event and blah blah blah. It never ends. You have to cut the umbilical cord and unfortunately help yourself.
Hmm.
I'm very sorry that you had to go through that, because in your
Well,
case
it's life. It's just life.
it's in your case it's even more sinister, because I will not compare you to like someone like AIDS or cancer or stuff like that, but this is a medical condition. Like you have to get an operation, you have to get some medicine, you have to be
Hmm.
to meet like a doctor and stuff. And like your life can be in danger. Like I'm sure what you spoke about with the hormone crisis and going a
Oh,
bit
it was really
insane.
bad because
Yeah,
yeah, for several years I wasn't sleeping well. I had binge eating problems. Sometimes the food I ate wouldn't taste right. I would have hot flashes. I would have fits of rage, fits of sadness, and it made my life difficult. It was difficult to function.
yeah,
And I had blood pressure problems. Like it was not it was a real medical condition I needed help for. I'm
yeah.
glad that I was able to afford it.
It's
It
no
was
surprise. I'm sorry that people with your problem and people in the transgender spectrum stuff, blah blah blah, the rate of suicide is through the roof.
yeah, it's pretty bad. And
Yeah,
I think a lot of the reasons why that the suicide number is really high for the gender bender people
the
is
gender bender.
so well because I had to meet so many different people that were of the gender non-conforming bucket that the LGBT uses. They say gender non-conforming for all of us. But I so many of the people I met, they were just talked into it by peer pressure and by the propaganda. They didn't have medical conditions. They were just people that had other problems. Like they were they had bad parenting, they were sexually abused, they had a drug problem,
They were
they had
isolated.
other mental problems
Yeah,
that were not addressed. And so to find an identity, they the alphabet mafia welcomed them with open arms and they just said, "Okay, well you have to be homosexual or transgender and we'll give you an identity, we'll give you community, we'll give you a family."
here, take a
When it's all
badge.
fake. And so it was so many of the people that I met through this time in my life, they weren't, in my opinion, genuinely if there even is such a thing as a genuine transsexual person, they weren't that they were just disturbed people that
Yeah,
had unaddressed real problems and they ended up being transgender. And if you have someone who is genuinely disturbed and has been abused and has other mental problems and you don't fix that, and then you start giving them hormone treatments to make them even crazier, well, I'm not surprised so many transgenders kill themselves because they're already mentally disturbed people that never get help for their problems. So of course they kill themselves.
I had a discussion not about transgender and stuff, but about the LGBT mafia. So you speak about, and
Yeah.
the people and the thing around this movement and this lobby, because it's definitely a lobby at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's like, um, I'm sure you know South Park, and there
Mhm.
was one episode when I think it was Jimmy, the new cripple guy with the metal legs,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they fight with Timmy, and Cartman say "cripple fight," and
Yeah, that's funny. I remember that. Yeah.
and yeah, so especially since I had many people with disability in my family, unfortunately. So it I saw even once or twice family event in that fight. Anyway, and the guy talked to me about this big group and the people around the group, and he said, yeah, they are all retarded people, all people with disability, from mental problem, etc. So, in your opinion, since you've been in the belly of the beast, uh, like, is this true? Like, all of them have mental problem?
From what it seems like, I would say the vast majority, yes. There were only a small number of people I met who were of the transgender, or they would say transsexual, because the sane ones that I met did not like the word transgender. They said that was a very ideological. They said that medically they considered themselves transsexual because they believed that there was something wrong with their genetics and their brain that made them feel like they should be the opposite sex, and they had been that way since birth.
So this is the
And
gender dysphoria that people spoke about.
yes, and this type of what I consider to be sane or at least realistic trans person was a vast minority. I only met a handful of them the entire time that I had to deal with. I would say 9 out of 10 of all of the transgender bucket that I met were disturbed people that didn't really have any reason to have gender problems. They were just disturbed. And because it's such a culturally enforced thing, they became transgender or gender nonconforming. And they all had a history of drug abuse, sex abuse, having abusive parents, coming from no parents, growing up in an orphanage. They had critical emotional mental problems that were not being addressed and were not being helped. That was like 9 out of 10 of all of these trans people.
Yeah, it
They were
definitely
just,
fit the picture of the chaotic cult. This is crazy.
yeah, definitely. They and like I said, some of them were sane, normal people who, for whatever reason, had always from childhood felt like they were the wrong sex. But they didn't have any other, like, they weren't abuse victims, they didn't have other mental problems. This was like maybe 1 out of 10 or 12. So the vast minority were like that. And only some of them were sane. Some of them were just absolutely insane, but they were happy and not riddled with problems. They were just nuts. They were just crazy. So I would say that maybe 1 out of 20 or 1 out of 30 was someone relatable and sensible like myself.
Yeah, so
Most of the time,
5% or less.
yeah, most of the time, the ones that I met and talked to were these psychotic, agenda-driven mongrels and spiteful mutants, and then about a third of them were just really pathetic, sad people that had a lot of problems that weren't being addressed in any other way. And that's probably where most of the suicides come from, are the truly disturbed people that just get sucked up into the craze. That's probably where most of the suicides come from, if I had. And then
I think I agree.
it's probably the case. Like I don't work in behavioral science. I'm not a statistician. I don't know, but
Yeah, but
just
you have
from the
strong
several years
experience. Yeah.
I had to associate with lots of these people. It just seems like that so few of the people involved in any of that had actual gender sex based problems like me. Almost none of them did. It was almost always political and ideological because they wanted to be part of the team, or they were just really disturbed people that wanted anything that would give them an identity or give them fellowship. And these were the disturbed people that were, drug abusers, and they were victims of sex abuse and came from broken families and just all kinds of the usual things of what you would expect. That was like at least a third, if not a half of them. So it was just it was an eye-opening experience to realize that all of these things that television and politicians and even people in my own school told me was one way, it was actually not that at all. It was just this sick, ugly, dark cancer in our society that was being driven by really evil people that were not genuine at all in their mission. It was very sad.
Yeah, I bet. Because I'm sure that you befriended many people, or at least some of them, and I bet my two balls that you heard some very heart-wrenching confession, or like
Yeah,
learning secret, or like things that they
yeah,
never talk about anyone else. Like, oh, I
yeah.
was abused by my father, or my mother burned cigarettes on my arms for 20 years. You
And
know,
and it's
yeah.
not just that. A lot of people, I think, are led to this gender nonconforming, the males, the younger, the boys. I think a lot of them end up this way for two reasons: is they don't have good male role models or fathers, and society hypersexualizes. And you
Yeah.
have these young boys with no male role model, no good family. They grow up in an era of every video game is just full of sexualized images, and there's just no end to internet pornography. There's no end to sexualized females being celebrated on TV and in commercials, and it damages the mind of a lot of these weak-willed young boys with no strong positive male role model. So they say, well, if society hates men and men are all bad, and I have no positive male role model, and I live on cartoons and video games and internet pornography, then these young disturbed boys start identifying with anything positive that they see. And they see hot women in pornography. They see hot women in video games. They see hot women on TV and in movies being celebrated and praised. And then in school, they also hear, hey, if you're a boy, you can be a girl if you want to. And so I think a whole lot of really sad, disturbed young men end up saying that they're girls and wanting to take estrogen and become girls because that's the only way that they feel like they can have any kind of positive identity. And like I kept running into this over and over again with these young boys I was counseling and meeting at these meetups and at these clubs where people would come to have fellowship and stuff. It was so much of the time it was just young disturbed boys that had only mothers, no positive male role model, and they were just absolutely addicted to internet pornography and video games. And I feel like that really warps a lot of young boys' minds. It makes them think that their only escape, their only way to have a positive identity is to destroy everything masculine about them. Like, I can't tell you how many, maybe a dozen, 15 young boys that came to these meetings and shared their thoughts. They said they wanted to become a girl because they didn't feel like that being a boy had any future for them. And
Well,
that's
the
really
girl
sad.
at the woman, and specifically the young girls, like starting the adolescence until 25, something like that, they are the to me personally, the upper protected class of people. The
Yeah.
women are like a pure creature, like they never go to the bathroom, they never fart, they always smells good, they would never nothing wrong, never. And
Well,
yeah,
when it comes to the females, the young girls, I think that it seems that young girls are much more impressionable by social forces than young
yeah.
boys. And I think that the reason why we've seen a dramatic increase in young girls getting involved in all this transgender nonsense is because of the social pressure. Because when you look at the cartoons and the media and the politicians and the messaging and magazines and things that are aimed at young females, it always has this masculinization and defeminization element to it of, be the girl boss, you can be as good as any man, And then it's a very easy step for them with social pressure to say, oh, well, if you're just as good as a man, you might as well take testosterone. Well, why do you need breasts? You're not, you know, you don't want to be a mother. You don't want to be confined by the
Yeah,
slavery
there
of
is
motherhood.
also the oh, there is nothing wrong, and you definitely should start an OnlyFans.
Yeah, that kind of thing too. Yeah. And it's just, there's so much darkness. And this is why I always go back to anti-whiteism, is because when you have this anti-white animus in culture that annihilates the the positive structure of healthy Western culture, of families with mothers and fathers that show them a good way to live and show them positive male and female role models. When you have an absence of that and you have pressure to go a different direction, it's very easy to move a large portion of youth down a destructive path because they don't have anything positive other than the propaganda, other than the social inclusion that the alphabet mafia offers. And so that's why I think that anti-whiteism is at the core of a lot of these reasons why we see so many young white kids going to join the alphabet mafia.
And about the people you encounter in the association and stuff like that, and the mafia,
Mhm.
the people who run this association, this group, and these kind of events and stuff,
Mhm.
uh, are they also crazy, insane, or like,
Yes.
okay.
Most of them, most of the ones that were organizers, the ones that were professors or psychiatrists, many times they were transgender themselves. They oftentimes had histories of abuse, or they were extremely politically active. Like one of the organizers at an event I went to was an open Marxist, and he had a hammer and sickle flag in his private office.
Hmm.
So a lot of these people are seriously Marxist, ideologically, politically driven to do the things they do, on top of all the other things we talked about. And many times, the people involved in these functions, they were internationalists, they were technocrats, they were corporate man, come from corporation because we want to do this for, diversity and inclusion, blah, 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 blah. They were doing it because of corporate reasons and financial reasons. They wanted to be invested in this because it would get them tax breaks or get them a pat on the back in the corporate world. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it just, like I said, it really opened my eyes to just how ugly and evil so much of our culture is. And it stung me personally because I was personally involved in it for several years. And it really opened my eyes to a lot of things.
It's I'm kind of shocked. Like, I didn't know how deep the rabbit hole was.
I mean,
It's
all you have to do is just go digging a little bit into the alphabet mafia, and almost every stone you uncover is either a Marxist or someone who's been sexually abused and is
Oh,
addicted to
no, no,
drugs.
this I
Like
know,
almost
but
every time.
this I know, but I wasn't aware that they were doing that for the tax break, and I didn't know also that they, how to say that? I didn't know that it was this deep, because I heard some horror story. I don't know if you know about Sydney Watson, the Australian woman.
Yeah, I know who that is.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know who she is.
she spoke about one thing that we never speak about on the topic of transgender issues. The people who are left behind. For example, one woman or one man go for transition, and so
Mhm.
this person leave behind a wife or husband and kids and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's
And
another thing.
yeah, it was heartbreaking to hear the
Mhm.
story she told, and so I know there is some very dark stuff. But
And yeah,
I
and
didn't
to
know that
speak,
it was like you describing a recruiting ground.
yeah,
And
it's recruitment.
yeah.
It's cult-like mafioso recruitment and enforcement, because this topic would come up a lot. Of a lot of the times, people at these meetings would complain and be sad about losing their family, losing their children, losing their community, and the people that ran these meetings would always say, "Oh, well, we're your family. Well, you don't need them if they don't accept you. Fuck them. Just get rid of them. You don't need your biological family. You don't need your church. You don't need your community. Those people can all go to hell. We're your family."
Oh, sorry, but the common ESG score plus 100.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting you.
Oh no, that's a good one. That was a good one. But no, But no, that's a big part of what we were talking about earlier about how these people that are often brought to this, they're already socially awkward, or they have bad families, or they are talked out of what few good family and friends they have
Yeah.
by being enticed and incentivized to eschew everything normal and natural to become part of this big mafia.
Yeah, it's crazy, and again, it resonates a tiny bit with autism because I did a video recently about the neurodiversity movement. I'm still not 100% sure what to think of it, but I'm mostly negative towards it. But that's not
Mhm.
the point. The point is that the autism community and space that people with autism talks and stuff like that, there is a growing and ever growing and ever growing sentiment of bitterness and sometimes hostility towards the non-autistic people, so the
Mhm.
neurotypical people.
Right.
And
And
it's
it's the same way with
yeah,
neurotypical and neurodiverse, and the friction and the propaganda that they're fed to be against the neurotypical.
yeah,
It's the same way in the alphabet mafia.
yeah,
They always
that's
they push homophobia, transphobia, cisgender versus transgender, blah blah blah,
there is
and they
always
make
the
yeah
there is always the topic in the autism Facebook group, like, oh, do you too have problem and you cannot support anymore the neurotypical person, like, oh, can you also cannot bear to speak with a neurotypical person, blah blah blah. So
yeah
always them, and I'm sure, yeah, this is you describing, like, oh, the non homo people, the non
yeah
lesbian people, blah,
yeah.
oh, the damn
It was
straight male.
yeah it was a very ugly. I don't know, just everything about it is ugly and unnatural.
Yes.
And it was very disturbing to see that universities and hospitals and insurance companies and corporations, they were all backing this evil thing, this evil cancer. It was it wasn't just something they had to put up with, but they encouraged it, they supported it. They actively sought to do the damage they were doing, knowing what they were doing, and they did it anyway. And that was just a very scary, dark realization that, wow, the world really is against everything normal. Like
Yeah.
corporations and governments and schools, it's like they hate normal, traditional minded people. They actively hate the white race. They actively hate and despise Christians. They actively try to steal the children away from traditional families and corrupt them. And it's really dark and sick. And I'm glad that I discovered that early in life and didn't get pulled into
Yeah,
it
yeah,
in a
because
different way.
if you stayed in that long enough, even the most well-built people can be influenced and sway into it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's I'm a bit lost for words, to be honest.
Well,
uh,
I'm never at a loss for words, my friend. I'm Southern and have the gift of the gab. I can talk forever.
Damn, they're
Uh, speak,
southerner.
speaking of talking forever, we've been talking for about 3 hours. Is there anything else you
Yeah.
want to talk about?
Oh, I have other question, but I don't know about you. If you still have time and stuff.
Well, I've got some time. Yeah, we could
Okay,
do more
okay.
questions if you have, or if
Um,
you want, we can do an episode 2. If you'd rather do it a different day, if you want, or do you,
I prefer to stick in one episode, but
okay. Well, let's just keep going then.
yeah, yeah, because some of the question I had, you already answered them, and so I
Okay,
okay, this was covered, this was covered. But
okay,
I
sure.
was a bit shocked about what you said about your life in the belly of the beast. Like, you told me a bit, but still, it's I'm very sensitive, wink, wink, sensitive about the people who have health issues. And to me,
Mhm.
what you had was health issue. Uh,
Yes.
in contrast, from, for example, my problem with autism, my problem was not technically autism. It was most like I was homeless. I had no possibility of having a job, stuff like that. It's not my health per se, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And
Mhm.
you, like, you had blood pressure, you had so many problem you had, and they were like, oh, it's okay, just keep talking.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I cannot stomach that. But Yeah, I'm just checking my question. Oh, yes. I will not speak about me per se, but I will use myself as an example because I think
Hmm.
it's a good one. You helped me not so long ago introduce me to the Anglosphere. You invited me on live stream and stuff like that, and you told me that I could count on you in the future for my publishing my work and help me promote it, etc., etc. I know
Hmm.
yourself also have the soul and the heart of a nerd and a geek. Um, so you speak about the the war, so to say, on culture, so the expression culture war, and why
Hmm.
are you so um, close in your heart about the artists and the people who create a work of art, like I'm the video game developer, I'm a painter, or I'm a writer.
Hmm.
It's like you have a soft spot for this. Can you explain a bit why?
Sure. I mean, well, my family my family loves music. They like fiction. Uh, when I was young, my father and his brother and my mother's brother and a lot of my cousins, they loved things like heavy metal and Star Wars. They liked heavy metal music. They liked the cartoon Heavy Metal the movie. And I was raised on Lord of the Rings and all in Star Trek and just all the types of fantasy nerd fiction. A lot of people in my family got me playing Dungeons and Dragons. They got me playing BattleTech, Warhammer 40K, and I've always liked gaming and mythology and fiction like Tolkien. That kind of stuff is really awesome to me. And the reason why I think now that I'm older that that stuff is important is we need mythology. We need we need stories. We need epics that we can pass down that show us the archetypes of heroic action. And we need from a young age to have heroic stories that we can aspire to be that are part of us. And that's a big thing that I think is missing is this vacuous anti-ethnic movement in entertainment to diversify everything. And if you diversify everything, then it's not for anyone. It's not for anybody except the spiteful mongrels that this system creates. And it's not really even for them either. It's all about destroying cultural history, mythology, that kind of thing. And when you look at something like Lord of the Rings, yeah, it's make believe. But Tolkien loved mythology. He loved studying both Christian and pagan myth and religion
He was
and
a linguist.
spirituality. Exactly. He studied other languages so he could learn in the native language at the time about the cultural histories and religious expressions and mythology of different language. And he put all of that into his great work of art of the Lord of the Rings stuff, the 6 books of the trilogy, the Silmarillion, and all of that. He created a beautiful Bible of lore, and that's in the spirit of the North European. It is extremely European. It is
It's building
very
your own religion in a way. Like this is
yeah, and it's
the myth, this is the heroes, this is the story, this is the tale of
yeah,
this
and
prophet, blah blah blah. It's almost the same.
and you've got other expressions too. Like you've got even a different kind of fiction, like pulp fiction stuff, like
Yeah.
John Carter, Warlord of Mars, comic books from the 1900s, old dime novels about warriors and soldiers and gumshoes, detectives and people working against the mafia, and just all kinds of interesting fiction that gave us archetypical models of being stoic, being a hero, being a good man that embodies righteousness, teaching us about the different archetypes of evil, the sinister manipulator like Wormtongue, the psycho that just wants to watch it all burn like the Joker from Batman. Fiction teaches young people necessary archetypes about how to live and how not to live, about heroes and villains. And the modern cancer that takes all of the fiction and all of the popular things like Tolkien and popular novels like oh, I don't know, what's that big one that everybody likes, uh
Star
Game of
Trek.
Thrones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Game of Thrones, like you see what what the anti-white corporate stuff does.
Oh
They
yeah, they did.
diversify,
I
they
don't know if
change
you.
things.
I don't know if you are aware of that, but they did the Witcher, the TV series, very dirty
Yeah,
because
I heard that that was really terrible.
yeah, but
And The Witcher is heavily based off of Germanic folklore and
more
old pagan traditions.
not exactly German. It's more like Poland, and like
Well,
the
maybe
film.
Germanic isn't the right word. What's the
Yeah,
right word for that cluster? What is the right word if not Germanic?
Slavic,
Oh, it's
Balkan.
based on Slavic. I thought it was Germanic folklore. Anyway,
It's the
I don't know
weird.
The Witcher. I don't know.
It's the weird frontier between the Germanic side and the Slavic side.
Oh,
So
okay. Okay.
Poland, it's a weird mix between Europe and Asia, but the Russian type of Asia, and they
Okay.
have their
Well,
own legend and stuff like that. And all of the heroes in The Witcher are white because Polish people
of course.
are
Right.
white, and they made
And so
so
that's
many insert and I hate it.
yeah, and that's where I was going with all of this is the reason why we have mythology and folklore and the fiction that's been popular for the last, several hundred years. It teaches us things that we can aspire to, ways of being. And just like how in religion, you'll have religious figures like a saint or a Jesus or a Muhammad, or those things. That teaches an archetype. It gives people something to aspire to that is not real and is unachievable. Like a Christian can never be perfect and be a perfect good man like Jesus, the Jesus character in the Bible. And you can't, but it gives you something to aspire to, a model. And mythology and fiction works that way too.
Mm.
And now that I'm older, this is why I like people like Dave Martell and uh, Donald over at American Zarathustra, men who like to make real fiction that's not full of political messaging, but is genuine European ethnic fiction. And these stories, they matter to us because this is how we share the things that are the archetypes of our biospirit. We share them in folk tales. We share them in mythology. We share them in novels. We share them by making tall tales or writing a book. These things are important to us. They teach our young people archetypes, masculine and feminine archetypes, good and evil archetypes. And they're very important for a young person to read about, to learn about, because that teaches them different templates, different metrics that are the distilled wisdom of hundreds of generations of our people, distilled into a form that can teach the lessons that we've learned for thousands of years in fiction. I mean, this is why these things are important, and that's why I celebrate and try to promote people like you that make real good fiction.
Well, thank you. I understand a bit more why you have, as I said, a soft spot for it, because if you were raised in a household when everyone listened to Iron Maiden or Metallica while
Yeah,
watching Star
yeah,
Wars, like the
yeah.
old one, I
Yeah,
understand
like
that
my dad and my uncles and my cousins, they loved, Black Sabbath and the heavy metal movie. They
yeah.
liked Star Wars and Star Trek. They got me to play D&D. They taught me about Tolkien. We would go out into the yard and use sticks, and we would pretend to be knights and dragons and orcs and fight each other with sticks. And I had a really active, vibrant childhood with a bunch of people my age and a bunch of older people too. Mostly dudes, of course, because women don't really get into
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But it's like it was mostly dudes. My cousin was kind of into it. She was a female and she liked fantasy stuff and Tolkien and things, so she played with us too. But it there's a big part of me wishes that all the people of the West could have that kind of upbringing and be taught about Sauron and why Sauron is bad. Not just that Sauron is bad, but why he's bad. Be taught
Yeah.
why. Like, why is it good for a man to be stoic and masculine and not cry in front of his children? Why does that matter? Why is it important? Why is it important for a mother to be nurturing and ferociously protective of her children? Why does that matter? Why is it important to us, and how does that tie in to who we are as a people today? Like, I feel like that because of fiction and because of how my family and the friends of ours at the time, they were passionate about those archetypical stories. I think that's one of the reasons why it was more difficult for the Alphabet Mafia to poison my mind. Because almost immediately when I got involved with them, I could tell something was wrong. I could tell that something was off. And if I didn't know from a young age, if I wasn't taught by fiction and my family, the archetypes of right and wrong, the archetypes of male and female, I don't think that I would have been as resistant as I was to the Alphabet Mafia's propaganda. So I think that just good fiction and keeping alive real folk tales and real stories of ours, of our people, that is a healthy way that we can inoculate children against the mind poison.
Well, for myself, as I said, I was also unfortunately given a childhood without a father, but for different reason. And
Right.
it's what helped me is, like you said, like the legend and the stories I like watching the old cartoon of the 90s, Batman or the Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
it helped me more so Dragon Ball, by the way, also. Dragon Ball is a very the old one, of course, Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. They are very like they are one of the best lesson you can give a young boy about courage,
Mhm.
fighting the odds, having discipline. Even though Goku is a real goofy guy, but still, like he train, he want to be better, he want to learn and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So this kind of character gives you courage when you
Mhm.
face adversity, and it definitely helped me. Like it was a dream, like, oh, one day if I can meet Goku, yes, he will be proud of me, he will teach me the technique of the Kamehameha. But yeah, it's almost like father figure. Like you spoke numerous time about the big problem of the fatherless home, and this is definitely a thing. Like for me, who was a young boy without a father, even though
Mhm.
I had stepfather, but it's not the same. It's not the same.
It's not the same.
You can have very good stepfather.
Yeah,
They
my
exist.
mother and father both remarried, and the
Yeah.
people they married are good people. Like they
Yeah.
weren't bad people, but they weren't my mother and my
Yeah, this
father.
is
My
not
mother and my father,
real thing.
it's not the same thing, right?
Yeah. But yeah, for me, I had almost nothing. Like the stepfather I had, they were not bad people in any way, but they were not invested into me and making me learn stuff. For example, they never told me, "Hey boy, we go fishing." The cliche, I know, but still, like it's you have to do something like that with your dad or
Mhm.
stuff like this. Once I went to a football match, and this was nice, but it was very few and in between. I think this is the saying you have in English.
Yeah,
It
few and far between.
few and far between. Thank you.
Yes.
It was very rare. Like it should not be rare. It should be celebrated like a special occasion, but not rare, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I was always hungry for that, and I think like you, even though it was not the same, um, imaginary character, imaginary story, uh, nurtured me and fed me while I was starving for life lesson and attention and someone who cheered for me when I had a hard time sometime.
Mhm. And that's what family should be. Like,
Yeah,
you need a mother and a father. You need a community. You need people in your life to teach you the way, to give you the strength necessary to be a strong man or a strong woman, be a good mother and father, to be a good leader of a community, to like we can't do this alone.
yeah,
And you need more people in your life than just you and one put upon mother or one put upon father that has to work 2 jobs and can never spend time with you. Like, we need more than
yeah,
that. And this is why I say that our culture is completely anti-Western. It's anti-us, anti-white. It
yeah, and
doesn't want us to be healthy and succeed because it is not our entire culture is against the things that we need to be healthy and strong. It doesn't want us to have big families. It doesn't want us to have nurturing, wholesome family units and strong masculine and feminine archetypes. It actively works against all of them.
mm,
And that's why I say everything's anti-white. because it's all anti-male, it's anti-traditional, it's anti-us.
And also the stories that are produced today, especially from the younger audience, not necessarily kids, but younger audience. For example, when we were young, we had Scooby-Doo. Goofy as hell, stupid, but funny and in a way wholesome. A bunch of friends going on adventures, solving mysteries. Awesome.
Hmm.
And now we have
Yeah, that's cool.
Velma.
Yeah.
And today they don't teach anything. For example, let's stick with Scooby-Doo. Friendship is
Okay.
important.
Hmm.
Everyone has its skills. Be kind to animals. The villain is not always the one you think it is. Like this is
Hmm.
basic, but it's nice. It teaches stuff. And also it's a nice piece of art also. So I definitely understand more why you value art so much. Because I was telling a bit of my life story, but it's definitely one of the reasons why I do this today. Like I want to give what I received when I was younger, and I want to give something to the people who have nothing. Like they don't have I go back to Dragon Ball. Like they don't have like an imaginary friend that do like laser beam with his hand and turn to a monkey while watching the full moon. But inside he's a very nice guy and blah blah blah. You know it sometimes when all is bleak, when all is dark, sometimes you wish you met Superman.
Yeah.
And you don't want the Joe from outside from around the street. No, no, you want Superman to save you, like a strong guy, stoic, as you said.
Right.
These are the superheroes, literally the superheroes of our legend. And if we keep destroying all the mythos we have built for ourselves, like the stories and work of art and character, yeah, we have nothing. On that front, I'm
Yeah.
definitely with you.
Cool. Cool.
I have one last thing that I want to talk with you. Again,
Okay.
if you still have a bit of time for me.
Sure,
Uh,
of course.
so you and this is again in relation that of what we talked about just a moment ago.
Okay.
You organize in real life events, so your camping trip, etc. The good old American spirit. We eat meat and shoot shotguns. We shoot guns, not shotguns. But what are exactly your event? Why do you organize them? You told a little bit in the introduction, but can you tell us more? Because for people who have nothing, uh, community is a big thing. Sometimes it's even a dream. Like for me, I wish I could found a family, have a wife and stuff like that. Even get married if I know it's dangerous, but still. But when you are alone for so long, sometimes you have nothing to rely on, and you don't even know why you are alive and how to get in touch with people like you. We don't even know you exist sometimes. So uh, can you help us understand exactly why you create this event? Is this like you wanted to meet people and just you do it yourself?
Oh, yeah, well, here's the thing. I want to feel connected to other people who have learned what's going on about the media lies, the government lies. I wanted to be connected to others in a non-superficial. That's why I became a content creator. That's why I became a public. Is I wanted to not just share what I knew, but see who else was out there that I could find to talk to because I can't talk to people in my personal life about this. They don't want to hear it. They either think I'm crazy or they're just, "Oh, you just need to ignore all that stuff. It'll go away." And they don't want to engage with this war that we're in like I do. They don't want to face this darkness and face the evils that we face and actively fight it. They just and to their credit, they're good people around. They want to build big families and have farms and do wholesome good things, which is fine. That's good. But I was alone in my desire to fight back against the alphabet mafia, to fight back against now what I know to call
So
anti-whiteism.
it was that much of an impact on you, your experience with the association and stuff.
Yeah, and I wanted to create something to unify people together that were of a similar mind and saw a similar problem. And that's what led me to want to start being a public personality and networking with. And I found out that I'm good at networking with people because
You are.
not everybody I talk to is all on the same page about everything. But the people that I meet and network together agree that white people and men are being denigrated by corporations and schools and government. They agree that we're being lied to about most things by the media. And in that, we can find common ground and have real discussions and have real community around the things that we've discovered around this war that we're in. And so, one of the reasons I have in person events, I have two each year. I have one in the spring, which is a picnic event where we just get together and have food. And then in the fall, I have my camping trip. And I wanted to give something regular that would happen at the same time each year that people could reliably come to and be a part of something that was not just short term, something that they could rely on. They could meet people year after year after year at the same event, hosted by the same person. So that would just be something I can give to the community of people that are against this evil.
Yeah, and
And
you
so,
finance everything, like you pay for everything.
well, no, well, I community source. So
Yeah, yeah, but what I
the
mean
way,
is that there is nothing to pay to you. Like, oh, here is $50 for me to get to your camping trip.
right, right. I don't charge people. No,
Yeah.
what I do is whenever I'm going to have an event, I just let my community know, hey, the camping trip usually runs me around $300 because I have to reserve the campsite area that we're going to use. I spend like $200 buying a bunch of food, getting extra ammo, that kind of thing,
Ah,
just for
yeah,
the event.
the infamous more ammo.
Well, most people bring their own ammo, but we have people that each year we usually have at least one person that doesn't know how to shoot or has only shot a gun
That
once,
would be me.
and we like and we train people on firearm safety, firearm etiquette, that kind of thing. And so we like to have plenty of bullets for people. So, if let's say somebody shows up and wants a lot of practice with a rifle, well, you want to make sure you have plenty of ammo for them to shoot and for you to shoot too. So, anyway, but no, usually what happens is I'll crowdsource and people will just donate money, $20 here, $50 there. And it's very easy for me to get together the few $100 that it takes to run these. And I don't charge people that come anything because I don't want I don't want it to be like a for-profit thing, which it wouldn't be profitable anyway. But
Yes.
I want people to know that they have a truly community-focused thing that they can come to be around people of like mind that have discovered certain darknesses about what we face in society. And we get together and we have fellowship, and it makes people feel not alone, and it makes me feel not alone. It's for me too. It's not just for others, it's also for me. Because I like knowing that I'm connected to people. Like Reptile in the chat here today. He came to my camping trip last year. Him and his wife. He's been to one of my picnic events. I feel like he and I have a real bond of fellowship and brotherhood, even though we've only met in person 2 or 3 times. We talk regularly. We know about similar dangers in the world. He and his wife are raising their children away from the narrative, the anti-white narrative. And I meet people that have families that are doing what Reptile and his wife are doing. And it makes me feel like I'm connected to something real. And I remember the word fraternity I brought up earlier. It makes me feel like I am building part of a real fraternity of people who want to make things better and guide our people towards a healthier, better way of living.
Yeah, I feel you. It's again with the meme of Bender. I will build my own camping trip with shotgun and burgers.
Yeah, I built my own camping trip with shotguns and burgers and white people who don't hate themselves.
Yeah, it's I wish I could attend your event. I definitely would enjoy it, I think. Even though
Maybe one day.
afterwards I will be I need to get back to my cave.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not antisocial, but it's hard for me to socialize. It's taxing for the mind, and I need
Yeah.
to get back to my routine and my stuff, and yeah.
To your
But
little demon cave.
yeah, the spider cave, the spider demon cave. But yeah,
Yeah.
I live in a cave technically. Like I have my AC on and all of the curtain are closed and no lights,
Yeah.
no nothing. I'm in the dark
I
only with
like
my
it. I
screen.
like it dark and cold too. That's my
Yeah,
favorite.
the man cave, as they say in the US. But yeah, it's my environment. It's my thing. This is where I feel the best. Uh, because I hate the heat, I hate the light, I hate the noise. It's not that I just hate it. I have problems related with autism because it gives you like sensory overload, and it's very difficult for me. But
Mhm.
it's not like I will never go outside. It's just like I need to have the possibility to get back to my stuff.
Yeah, I understand. My
um
husband's that way too. He doesn't like to be social very long. He likes to be private.
yeah, it's draining for you. It's like in the final scene of Starship Troopers with the brain bug, like it stick a needle in your brain and suck everything in, like I need to get back to my loneliness. But yeah, I enjoy like real life stuff. I went to metal festival and all, and I never say no when someone like say, oh, we can go to a restaurant, meet someone and stuff. It's just that it has to be a tiny bit on my terms. If not, I'm really comfortable. And it's not like I'm a pain in the ass. It's just like you cannot get rid of your Christian background and raising. I cannot get rid
Mhm.
of the problem the autism gives me. But to get back to one final part of the question I asked you about people who are very lonely and stuff, this is a risk that many people have in the I will not say community, but people who have the same question as you know, like what's happening
Mhm.
to the world? Why me, a white male, I'm so hated? Like I'm not racist, I'm not xenophobic, I'm not this or that or this or that. And the more you turn stones, as you use this metaphor, the more you see that it's just hate and
It's
manipulation.
evil.
Yeah, and the more you discover, the more black pill, as we say, you become, and sometimes you can be very desperate. um what do you say about that, and what can you do about that? Is the camping trip you organize is like a solution to get to the real life, even though it's a bit of a paradox because it's hard to get in touch with people who are like-minded? So I know I don't phrase my question very well, but it seems to me that the people like you, like me, who are aware of this problem, sometimes tend to be a bit depressed, and you cannot hope for anything good in the end.
Yeah, but that's why you need to meet people that are of similar mind, because loneliness always makes things like depression and anger worse. The more that you are able to meet people who are at least similar to you in some ways and talk about the things that matter to you, the better it is for your mood and your passion. And even if you're not a very happy person, you can still be productive in your misery. You can be productive in your frustration. But when you are isolated and not part of any type of community, or you don't feel connected to anyone, it leads you down a very dark path. And these are the people that end up doing bad things like terrorism. They end up being manipulated by the feds or the CIA to do bad things because they're isolated and alone. And it's just a breeding ground for hostile negativity. And the more that you network with other people, the more that you see that you're not alone and get to vent your frustrations to other people who understand, the less likely you are to go down a really dark, destructive.
Yeah, I definitely understand, but what if you don't know anyone? I will use myself as an example. When I was
Okay.
definitely in one of the worst moments of my life, when I discovered that I actually had autism, and like my investigation lead to the final conclusion of yes, I have autism. Yeah, I had no friends. My girlfriend left me, and she was in a way, like you say, anti-white and stuff, or give
Mhm.
say to me that was conspiracy theories, blah blah blah. So there is different phase like that when you lose people. Like you lose your wife, you lose your job, you lose your friends, you lose your brother, blah blah blah. And so in the end, you become actually isolated. And even though you want to meet people, sometimes it's very hard to find them. So how to
Mhm.
get out of this vicious circle?
Well, that's a difficult question.
Yeah,
The
I know.
advice.
I didn't phrase it very well, but it's a bit hard to wrap my mind around it. What to do when you want to kill yourself?
Well, um, that's a
Step
very
one,
big
don't.
question. That's a big question, and the advice that I have is you have to be willing to do things that might fail. I know that it's sad. I know you might be blackpilled and alone. But remember, there are more people out there who think like you and see the problem than you. All you have to do is talk about it. And remember, community is you and one other person. You don't have to go and find a big group. You just have to find at least one person. That's how all communities and all groups start, is with two people. And the more that you talk to other people, the more that you'll find you're not alone. This might be difficult for you, I understand that. But wherever you live, even if you're in a cancerous big city like London, there's going to be other people that realize the problem, and you can talk to them about it. So just be vocal about it. Don't get yourself in trouble by, like, if you work for an anti-white corporation, don't go to work and be like, I love white people every day. Like, don't do something stupid like that.
White lives matter.
But
Outside, get the door.
yeah, like don't set yourself up for getting attacked like that. That's not what I'm saying. But like maybe go out to maybe you're a nerd. You don't like going to bars. You don't like going to sports games like football or whatever. But there are things that you are interested in that you can go out and find people. Maybe there's I don't know, like maybe you like nature. Well, go to places where people go on nature walks and try to meet people there. Or maybe you like video games. Well, go to a video game store or an arcade or try to meet people in a Telegram chat or a Discord chat for some games that you love and mention some things that you don't like. Be like, I like this game because it doesn't have white erasure in it, or I like this game because it actually makes the females pretty. It doesn't make them look like ugly men.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
and
That's
see
the new trend.
and when you say stuff like that, see who says things positively back to you, and then talk to those people because they clearly are at least comfortable to talk about the things you are, and then maybe you can make a friend that way, and then ask those people what type of Telegram chats they're in, what type of Discord groups they're in, what Facebook groups they're in, and try to meet people that way. And this is how all community groups start, is just people meeting each other by having similar interests and talking about things that they're interested in. And so you have to take the first step or you're going to be alone. And other people out there who might feel that way, if you talk to them, then you'll realize you're not alone, and then both of you can talk together, and then maybe you'll meet some other friends and you'll talk to them. And then before you know it, maybe there's 5 of you and you guys all get together to have a beer every month or go see a movie every month, and a new community is born. And you have to be willing to just to speak to people and talk your mind in a sensible way about the problems that we face. And I promise you, wherever you are, you'll find people that are at least of some kind of similar approachable mindset, and you won't be alone.
Yeah, I approve this message. I am Christopher Evrard and I approve this message. You know, like the political stuff in the US. Yeah, this is basically what I've done, and I also approve what Solon says in the chat. Like no, not one, the only thing that set me free in a way was starting to write my books, but I couldn't do that before when I was homeless and stuff. But still, it's the thing that, yeah, definitely freed me. I wasn't aware that I used that word, but yeah, this is that's the thing that get me out of the matrix. But yeah, that's true, and I think you would agree also. Like, take and transform your emotion into a work of art and see what happens.
Oh, that's good too. Yeah, like I said, it takes all kinds. There's going to be big masculine men. There's going to be weak effeminate men. There's going to be really feminine women and kind of, dorky tomboys. Whoever you are listening to this, you can contribute to positive, healthy culture. I don't care if you were homosexual for years, or you used to be part of the alphabet mafia, or you used to work at a corporation in HR and you did lots of naughty, anti-white things to people that worked at the corporation. You can choose to start being good today, right now. You can choose who you talk to. You can choose to network with others. You can choose to do good instead of evil. I don't care who you are listening to this. You can do good, and you should do good. And you will find others out there who are of like mind and who are at least cognizant of the problems going on, and you can find fellowship with those people. I promise you that you can. You just have to take the first step. And I think that if I have any message today to end on, it's that you can do something good, however small it is, but you should do it. We all should do it for the sake of ourselves, our family, and our future. We all should do what we can to contribute and create positive, good things for us and our.
Well, I approve of this, and if I may add something, is that for the people who aware of my works, my books and stuff, this is Yizz who introduced me to Dave Martel, and so after years of trying to get into a publishing house in the Francosphere, it took like 15 minutes to to convince Dave to get me in his publishing house. So yeah,
Well, you're
it's
welcome. I'm glad I
crazy.
helped.
Yeah, but it's also to give a bit of hope for the people who might be in the lower end of their mood. Like
Yeah, I got you.
stuff can be better. It's not
It can. You
guarantee,
just
but yeah.
you just have to reach out and be willing to take that small risk of talking to people and networking and asking questions to people in the right way. Don't be crazy at people, and don't you know if there's somebody at work that you think is pretty cool, don't go talking to them about Building 7 or anything too kooky or crazy. But just mention, like I said earlier, talk about I really don't like how ugly commercials have gotten, or man, I really don't you hate it how just all the media today and all the video games are full of stupid, ugly people, and none of the stories are any good anymore. And you'll find common ground that you can talk to others.
Mm.
And sometimes that's all it takes to start a real friendship or to start a real community group.
Yeah, and I think we can end the stream on that. On my end, I have no more question, so
Okay.
I will just leave like 2 or 3 minutes to see if there is question in the chat. So if you have some for years for for something we didn't tackled, or if you are curious about the stuff or
Well,
something,
we've
ask a
we've
question.
I've been paying attention to the chat. We've answered every question
Okay,
that the chat has had so far. I've been
okay.
keeping an eye on it.
If you want to run away, tell me.
Oh no, I'm just letting you know that there's
Okay.
only a couple of people actively typing right now, and they
Yeah.
didn't have any questions, and a couple of the things that came up earlier we've already discussed. So
Yeah.
I think that we've handled all the
But
chat questions.
to finish up properly, I definitely hope you had a good time. That we well we discovered a more deeper version of you, and also
Yeah.
that my question was not like were not too boring. Like I try to get to ask stuff that you didn't explain beforehand or in your video or no your stream and stuff.
I think you did a great job, and I had a good time talking to you. I like sharing things. It's just usually I'm the stream host, so I
Yeah.
try not to just blather on about me and my experiences. I try to talk to other people. So, and
And yes, Reptile, I saw the thing. I will definitely be grateful for that, but it would be very expensive. And
yeah, it would
I know
it would
nothing
be many
about
many thousand USD to get you on a serious trip here. It would be many thousand
probably.
USD.
And also, I know nothing about passport, visa, stuff like that.
That's another difficult challenge that we would
Yeah.
have to consider long ahead of time because it takes months and sometimes years to get certain visas and
I
passports.
never went anywhere in my life except a few vacation when I was a wee little boy. So yeah, I know nothing of
Yeah,
that.
things
And
are different now.
yes, I was in planes when you had the permission to smoke in them.
Yeah, I remember those days. But anyway, I had a great conversation with you.
Yeah,
I hope everyone listening to this, both live and after the fact, I hope that that you take from this interview inspiration and passion to speak the truth to anyone who has the ears to hear it. And don't be afraid to stand up for what you believe in. It's okay to love yourself and to love your culture and to love your people, whoever that is. And that includes white people. It's okay for white people to love their race, to love their ethnicity, to love their culture. It's okay, and it should be okay. And so let that drive you, because we all need to care about the things that matter, and we shouldn't be afraid to speak the truth.
Yep, and on that note, I will bid you adieu, like we say in French. Have a nice
Well,
day,
thank you, my friend.
everyone. Thank you very much. Bye bye.